2026 Planning Commission for the City of Philomath meeting to order. Roll call, sir, please.
Mike Krasowski, Chris Tosick, sorry.
Mike's good. Here.
Sarah.
Yeah.
Jeremiah. Josiah, Jessen.
Here.
Right. How long has it been since I've met with you guys?
It's been a couple.
Been a
Yeah,
lot.
here.
Kyle Cup here. And for staff, we've got Laura and Chris Workman.
Okay, first order of business, approval of minutes. Does anybody have any questions, comments, edits based on the last minutes that we had, which was basically a training session? Anybody have a motion to approve?
I move to approve the minutes.
Commissioner Cup, move to approve the minutes.
I'll second it.
I'll go just with Mike. I have trouble with it as well. Seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so we're going to move on to our public hearing this evening. And I've got a long script here, so bear with me as we work through this because there's this very specific process we've got to go through. So I will now open the consolidated public hearing on planning files 26-28, 26-29, 26-30. File 26-28 is an application for a major modification associated with the site design review. File 26-29 is an application for a Class B variance, and file 26-30 is an application for a preliminary partition plat. I'm supposed to count. All right. Project Glorietta Bay Development Modifications Storage Depot / Tall Timber RV Park. This is the case we're reviewing. Site address is 617 North 19th Street and 231, 229, and 320 Inspiration Way. The applicant owner is Glorietta Bay LLC, represented by Scott Lippman. Did I pronounce that right? And Candice Rivera. The application requests approval of a preliminary two-parcel partition, major modifications to previously approved master plan development, and a Class B variance. The order of tonight's proceedings will be: first, the staff will present their report, any additional written correspondence, the applicant's presentation. Then there'll be public testimony in favor of the application, public testimony in opposition of the application, neutral testimony, rebuttals by the applicant, questions for staff from the commission, and at that point in time, we will close the public testimony. After the record is closed for testimony, no other comments will be heard unless the body, i.e. the commission, reopens public testimony. Commissioners deliberate and a final decision. So far tonight, I only have one request to speak. So due to the number of people wanting to provide public testimony this evening, I will ask that you keep your comments. We either go 3 or 5 minutes, and since it's only one, we will grant 5 minutes for each speaker. I will let you know when the time is up. We will first hear those here in person, followed by anyone participating remotely. To those in attendance, please fill out a testimony form and submit to the city manager. Asking of staff, did anyone sign up to provide testimony remotely?
No.
No. Okay, if no, okay. Any questions should be addressed through me as the chair. Please state both your name and the city of residence for the record, as the hearing will be recorded. Please keep testimony concise and to the point. notice. The Planning Commission will make a decision tonight, or the matter may be continued to a time and date certain in the future. If the matter is continued to a time and date certain in the future, this will be the only notice of that date you will receive. Criteria. The criteria that apply to the decision are listed in the staff report. These are the criteria the Planning Commission must use in reaching a decision. Testimony and any evidence provided must be directed to these criteria and other criteria believed to apply to the decision. Please describe how your comments relate to the criteria. Again, a decision on this application must be based on the applicable criteria. Despite the importance of other issues or concerns, the Planning Commission can only base its decision on whether the evidence shows that the applicant complies with the criteria. The Planning Commission's decision may be appealed to the City Council. Failure to raise an issue in significant detail to allow the Planning Commission and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes an appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. Failure by an applicant to raise constitutional or other concerns relating to proposed conditions of approval in sufficient detail to allow the Planning Commission to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. General disclosure. Now, I ask any members of the Planning Commission to disclose any ex parte contacts, bias, conflicts of interest, including any site visits. Please indicate the nature and extent of the ex parte contact or conflict of interest. Indicate whether you intend to participate or abstain from the hearing.
I live close to the property under discussion, but believe that I can be impartial in my decision as to whether the applicant meets the criteria and intend to participate.
Okay, good. Anybody else had any site visits or anything?
I'm good friends with your neighbor, Ryan. He lives at 273 North 20th. And I'm in normal, pretty regular contact with him, but that won't have any impartiality. I plan to participate.
Okay. I finally get to stop. So we will now hear the staff report.
Thank you very much. So, my name is Laura Barrett. I'll be presenting just an overview of the staff report that you've included in the agenda packet. Before I get started, can everyone hear me okay? Okay. Do you want me to get started?
Go ahead and start, I'll get there.
Okay, great. So the application before you tonight is a consolidated land use review. There's 3 different main parts to the application. It consists of a preliminary partition plat, a major modification that includes a number of modifications, and a Class B variance. So during the course of this presentation, I'll provide just an overview of all the different applications under your review tonight. The proposal at a glance. So as Chair Tim described, this site is known as an RV park and storage facility that's constructed approximately at 617 9th Street and several different addresses off of Inspire Way. As I mentioned, the proposal is to create a preliminary partition plat, creating 2 separate lots. One of the lots would be the larger RV portion of the site. The second would be a smaller, less than an acre parcel that's generally located just to the south of that RV park. The purpose for that secondary parcel is to create a separate parcel of land that could be developed in the future. There is no development proposal that's in association with the partition portion of the application. The modifications include several, and I'll go over those in a little bit more detail throughout the presentation. But essentially they include adding 3 RV park cabins. So these would be cabin buildings that are located in the RV park that's already approved. It includes some interim or short-term use of 2 different areas in the facility. One was previously approved for an RV storage park. The proposal includes using that space for temporary construction staging, so materials and vehicles needed to complete the rest of the site. The second part of this proposal includes using what was approved for industrial flex space buildings and relocating the RV park storage to that site while construction is taking place. And then there's other modifications for minor encroachments into the riparian buffer area and some square footage changes to the site for the storage buildings as well as the RV community buildings. So the first portion of the application, as I mentioned, is a preliminary partition plat to create two different units. So once the slide is pulled up here, you'll see that there is the larger parcel where the RV portion of the facility is located. That would be called parcel 2. It's approximately 15.21 acres, and that would entirely include the RV portion of that site. The second parcel that's being created is actually labeled as parcel 1. It's 0.80 of acres, located in the southeast corner of the site. And the applicant has included just a conceptual sketch showing kind of just a square block building, just to represent that construction could occur in that area. The criteria that's associated with a partition plat is to review to make sure that it has adequate access, that it can be served by public utilities, and that any future development or dimensional standard can be met based on the zone that it's located. On this particular one, because it is in an industrial zone, it doesn't have any minimum lot areas, no maximum areas, no widths and depth standards that apply. The parcel that you create essentially just needs to be able to accommodate a future building, parking, and landscaping requirements that would be within it. At that acre, and as shown by the applicant as just that conceptual sketch, it does appear adequate to serve some future industrial or commercial use within this facility. The second portion of the application is the proposed modification. Included in there is just some square footage change for the storage depot manager quarters that's located with the storage facility. 7 different storage buildings. There's a proposal to decrease square footage in the 7 different single-story storage buildings. The 3-story self-storage building is proposed to increase slightly in square footage. Industrial flex space buildings is proposed to increase. So essentially, when you're looking through this chart, you can see what the net increases and decreases are overall. These are generally in the amount that staff would be able to review, with the exception of some that are just over that 10% mark. Items that we review when we're looking at these sort of modifications is just that items that are based on square footage can be met. In this case, it's parking. So in the applicant's proposal, they do list the parking that's associated with each of these. What staff has included as a condition is just final floor plans so that we can verify those square footages and that there's adequate parking per each use. On the next slide here talks about some proposed changes to uses on the site. So there's a kind of a blue box here, and what that and the slide or the picture on the left represents is what is approved as an open RV boat storage area. The picture on the right shows that that area is proposed to hold the construction storage equipment that's needed to be on site to complete the development of the RV park and some of the storage units. So the applicant proposes for a period of time from 5 to 10 years to allow the area that's approved for RV boat storage to be used for temporary staging for construction. After construction takes place and all of that is complete, it would revert back to what is already approved as RV storage. The boxes that are kind of highlighted in red on the screen there, the one on the left shows what's proposed as flex industrial space buildings. The applicant proposes, while construction is taking place and storage is being kept on site, that those can be used for that function of storage of RV boats and other items. And again, once that 5 to 10 year period is completed, the proposal would be to revert that back to the original use, which is flex building space. So these are just temporary uses while construction is going on, and then it allows them to go back to what is approved by the Planning Commission originally. On the next slide, it talks about some of the modifications that are associated with the RV park. These are color coded. Although on the summary box on the lower left-hand side is highlighted in yellow, and it talks about some gravel that's proposed off to the, it would be the south portion of the site, south of the community building. So if you're looking at the screen here, north is oriented to the left, and it would be kind of the middle right-hand side of the screen that's highlighted in yellow. So what's proposed is an encroachment into the required 50-foot riparian buffer, and then the use of gravel, and that would serve as just a viewing area to the south of the community building. The other change, it's highlighted in green, so if you're looking at the screen, it's on that lower portion of the photo. There's a green box that points to kind of a rectangle. And that's proposed to add a pickleball court that can also be used as a basketball. This one would partially also encroach into the required 50-foot riparian setback and be located next to the detention facility. This is an amenity change. Previously, there was a pool, indoor pool that was proposed. This would replace that amenity and just offer a different sort of recreation for the site. Working our way here. So if you're looking at the screen, I'm still back at the other one. There's kind of a purple or magenta color that highlights the location of a proposed propane filling station. And this is intended to be used for folks that are utilizing the RV space to fill their propane right there on site. And then the red shading that's located on a couple portions on the map represents where the 3 cabins are proposed to be located. So moving to the next slide. Proposed RV cabins would be a new addition to the RV park. These are intended to have a second floor rental space that would be used in association with the RV parking facility. The lower portion of those are identified on floor plans that were provided by the applicant. And they include things like storage, a recreational open room, some bathroom shower spaces that would be used in association with the RV function of the site. So the next slide, we just talk a little bit more about there are these natural resource overlays. What that means is that there are provisions that restrict development when you're in close proximity to a riparian area. The standard is a 50-foot setback from top of bank. The code does allow encroachments to occur in those areas. If encroachments are proposed, what usually takes place is some sort of mitigation or plantings that occur in other portions along that same riparian. So if you're creating an encroachment, then you would offset that by enhancing landscaping elsewhere within that riparian to essentially have that riparian corridor serve that same function. The applicant does not include a detailed landscaping plan, so that has been added as a condition of approval to show what sort of mitigation and protection in terms of erosion control that would be in place during the normal course of construction. On the next slide, this is just a more detailed look at what's proposed. So this is the area that's currently approved for industrial flex space building. The proposal is to have an RV storage, boat storage take place. This is a snapshot from the applicant's site plan that shows kind of the parking layout in those areas. Some of those parking stalls are shown in a darker gray. That just represents where ADA paved spaces would be located. The rest of that facility is proposed to be gravel. There is a variance request that's included in this application to allow a gravel surface material to take place. The next slide, I've kind of already touched on this. This just shows a closer view of where that gravel is proposed to take place within that riparian setback area to the south of the community building. So just kind of keep that brief and move to the next slide. So the last of the three applications is a Class B variance. This Class B was found to be required because gravel is a transportation improvement standard. The Class B does allow the city and the planning commission to vary from our standard pavement requirement. And when we're looking at this, it is just looking at how do you mitigate if the need is demonstrated to be required in this setting. So the justification for the variance from the application as they presented was that this is intended to be a short-term use. So if you were to pave this area and then to come back in 5 to 10 years and remove that pavement would be a cost burden. They feel that the proposed use on a gravel surface would not create any issues. The only item that staff identified that may come up is just maybe dust control and maintenance of that area so that erosion doesn't occur, potholes, and any dust to the neighboring community. So conditions of approval have been included to require the applicant to continuously apply dust control. They can do that either through wetting or some sort of sealant that's provided into those areas. Entering into a maintenance agreement so that the long-term responsibilities on who takes care of some of these travel islands are already identified and disclosed should the property ever change hands. And then the other fact is that this is intended to be long-term storage of RVs and boats. So this is not something that we'd anticipate frequent parking and maneuvering to occur, such as like a parking lot would occur. So the usage of it should be more limited. So for those reasons, staff has recommended approval of that variance application. Normal course of the review process, we do put out a project review request and a public notice. So our partner agencies and staff are all provided with application material and an opportunity to provide comment. Public notice is mailed to property owners within proximity of the site. We received just 2 comments back. One was from the city's contract engineer, just kind of reminding staff that all the existing conditions for the planned unit development should remain in place. That has been captured in the recommended conditions of approval. The second comment that was received was from a neighbor, Mr. Osborne. That public comment is included in your packet and is there before you. The safety or the concerns that were identified in that letter were safety of house. This person lives just across the street on 20th Place and had some concerns about falling of trees in an oak grove that's directly across from their place of residence, and also about dust control. So the next slide just talks about how conditions from the original planned development carry forward. And providing just a brief overview of some of the conditions that staff has recommended. There's one minor change that I would like to add that came to my attention after the staff report was printed and distributed. On page 33, there's a condition that's labeled B3. So this is a condition that's tied to the variance application. The condition as it is written, it talks about the vehicle storage and construction access and travel areas to be take place on an engineered, stabilized, aggregate cellular confinement reinforced grid. That language comes directly from our design standards. The intent for this condition was not an engineered grid system. For those that aren't aware of what those are, they're essentially a built honeycomb shape, generally, that's filled with gravel and compacted. It's intended for a more long-term gravel material surface in lieu of a pavement surface. The applicant here has proposed a compacted aggregate surface. So with the Planning Commission's approval, I'd like to modify that condition so that instead of the engineered stabilized aggregate cellular confinement, that is replaced with an engineered compacted aggregate base rock surface approved by the city engineer. So that change, it does ensure that emergency access or vehicles, should they need to use the traveling, can do so safely. And that it can hold up to the intended use for recreational vehicles. So overall, staff has recommended approval for all 3 applications, subject to the conditions of approval that are included in the staff report. And I'm happy to talk about any of those in more detail. At this time, I'll wrap up my presentation and turn it over to any questions.
Does any of the commissioners at this time have any brief questions for staff or clarifications specific to the staff report at this time?
Yeah, just curious. I saw 5 years in here and I thought that was the max, but you mentioned 5 to 10 years. Is that?
The applicant has proposed any up to 10 years. The conditions of approval recommend 5 years. That is a decision based on the Planning Commission's discretion.
Along those lines, are there required timelines for all phases of the project?
They are vested, I believe, at this stage because construction has already occurred. Yeah, but there are conditions of approval that still carry forward that are tied to certain steps in the development.
Is the development, what you just explained, is that tied to both lots? Because they've only constructed on, or they have construction on both, haven't they? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, both parcels,
Okay,
yeah.
I see.
Well, there's.
I had one clarification on the conditions that carry forward. Conceptual parcel building 1, which building is that?
So that was on actually proposed parcel 2. They show a conceptual just building shape to demonstrate that that can be improved.
Was that in the application?
It is shown on the applicant's partition
I
plan.
don't remember seeing that. So I was thinking this. I was asking, which,
Yeah. So I see it on civil plan sheet C103. And it would be PAR, that starts for the PAR. Let me see the PAR number. Shown on mod 6.
oh, okay,
Building in a parking lot.
okay, understood. So that's not part of the approval.
Yeah, we are not approving development on that parcel. That's simply to illustrate that it's adequate space to build a building in a parking lot.
Okay, and along those lines, we've had just some basic numbers. We don't have to dive really deep into them about, calculations for, landscape coverage and, parking, permeable surfaces, that kind of stuff. Were those calculations done for the new adjusted plot, or did they include that 0.8 acre in your calculations?
Yes, so in here, the site overall was compared to its previous land use approval. There is actually more landscaping and open space proposed now than what was approved. There are certain calculations that did include the parcel that's being created in the overall calculations. The applicant in some places did not break that out separately, but if you were to do that, it still was found to be met. So the conditions that are in here just essentially say, show this at the final construction phase so that can be verified. But based on the information we're seeing, we don't see any sort of concerns that would arise at that stage.
So in staff's review, you guys ran both calcs to
Yes.
fact check their numbers?
Yes.
Okay.
I do have a couple questions. The park amenities and use, the major modification, I guess is what you're calling it. That's basically a variance. Am I correct?
Because it is a planned development, they have some ability to propose uses in that area. The code would not require variance for that necessarily.
Okay, but as there's two areas of question that I have. One is the riparian. Is construction, hard surface construction, permanent construction, i.e. the court, i.e. the propane allowed in a riparian zone?
So the two encroachments are a gravel surface area, part of a patio with a community building, and a portion of that pickleball basketball court.
And the propane.
Yeah,
So I'm asking about the court and the propane.
all those, yeah.
Those two in specific, because those two are hard surfaces.
Yeah, so if
The
you,
the other surfaces are permeable surfaces.
so I did not find that a variance was required for that because they do allow some sort of modifications in that area if they are mitigated by additional landscaping and planting.
And what does that mean?
That means that you're doing a higher level of planting in the riparian in areas that are not impacted by development or encroachments.
And in your proposed language, is that addressed specifically?
Yes.
And then the second half of that question is, then it's the staff's responsibility to verify that when the final design is executed, that has been taken care of, that has been addressed.
In the condition of approval, it requires the applicant to submit a detailed landscaping plan to show that erosion control is going to be in place, that plantings are going to take place.
But that's going to be done in the riparian anyway, is it not?
Those are functions that normally occur, yes. Erosion control and things of that nature are a normal part of the construction process. What's not typically is enhanced planting. So a lot of times it's leaving those areas alone, not impacting at all. In this case, because impacts are occurring, additional landscaping will have to be planted. Your question?
Yes and no. I'm gonna dig a little deeper, just to, you, in your narrative, by reference, you referenced 1855-080 as it relates to the riparian. And that's variances. And under that, it says the property owner may apply for hardship variance for waiver of land development limitations found under this chapter for any lot or parcel existing at the time of this chapter, and demonstration to have been rendered not buildable by application of this chapter. The decision regarding the hardship variances will follow the procedure standards in 18.155. So that's my question, and is that my experience with riparians is you stay out of them at all costs. And if this section of our code, 1855-080, is applicable, then the applicant needs to show that there is a hardship involved.
Okay, so how I read or interpret that code is that if 50% or more of the riparian setback area is in, and in this case, because the size of the property and the limited impacts in there is less than 50%. So if it's, I think it's a question of scale. If you had a smaller property and the same encroachments were proposed, it would, by a percentage, would impact them at a larger amount. So I state,
Those-
are you looking at the finding on page 24?
No, I'm looking at our planning code. I'm looking at the code itself, not what you've written. Okay. All right.
Or if I could just clarify one point too, I think, because you'd mentioned a couple different, there's 3 different encroachments, right? The gravel is an encroachment because it's development within a riparian corridor. But gravel and, asphalt, concrete paved ways, those are allowed within riparian corridors. We see that along Hunsaker Bike Path. Right along the creek, there's a paved pathway, bike ped path. So it's not that you can't develop at all there. Primarily, we're looking at structures. We don't want structures to impact. So even propane covering, is that a structure? Is that a covering over a propane tank? There's still some impact there. But I don't know that even that propane tank is gonna be a fully enclosed, building or structure that would need to be permitted, as opposed to a propane tank with a covering on it that wouldn't necessarily need to be permitted. So there are impacts allowed within the riparian corridor. What we're really looking at is permanent structures that would be impacting it. And those for sure we would want to mitigate. I think to Laura's point, just the percentage of impact compared to overall, I don't think is there. We can look at the language, and maybe we get to this in discussion. If the planning commission wants more specific language about that landscape plan that specifically identifies compensatory or additional landscaping to compensate for that, I think that's some language we could be open to doing. I think that, I won't speak for the applicant, but I don't think that'd be problematic for them either. So we could look at some specific language later, if that's helpful.
Okay, thank you.
There's 80 and 90 right there.
Yeah, and that's what I
You got
just,
those?
I just pulled it off. the
The 90
website.
okay.
Yeah, I have 90. Okay. Okay, and then the second area question is the terms used here, cabins. Definition of an RV park is? That's a
You're
question?
asking the question? Yeah. I don't know if I specifically look at it. I could pull it up in the code if you'd like
Yes,
me to.
please.
No. Okay, so recreational vehicle park?
Yes, please.
Okay. Means a lot, tract, or parcel where there is 2 or more recreational vehicle sites are located, established, and maintained for occupancy by a recreational vehicle of the general public for a fee or charge. This does not mean an area designated only for picnicking or overnight camping. Or 2, a manufactured dwelling or a mobile home park.
If you go look at RV, I don't want to take the time, but if you want to, RV is something that basically has wheels on it to interpret the code. Our heavy industrial zoning allows RV parks, does not allow residential. And so that's where my question is, because we are, and in the narrative somewhere, it's using the term Airbnb as well, which if I would have counseled the applicant, would not have used that term. Because that denotes something that you're going to be out renting it, and it's going to be a short-term lodging. So my question is how does staff reconcile those two issues? And I'm going to follow up with one more thing. And yes, this is an industrial zone, and industrial zone has 0 setbacks. And we're taking these cabins, and I think in 2 of the 3 instances, they're at 0 setback. If they were anything else, i.e. residential, under any category, there would be some setback from the property. So I'd just like to have staff just talk through the decision-making process based on your recommendation to approve.
Yeah. So we actually looked at the definition of a dwelling, so we kind of went at it an opposite way, where something was permanent, tended to be occupied, for a long duration. On this one, we looked at it as an accessory use to the RV park, so something that would go hand in hand with the main use that is already approved. There is a condition on page 29 of the packet that sets some limitations. So it states that the cabin shall be operated only as a component of the RV park. So that's meaning not sold or marketed reserve as an independent residential or transient lodging use, as well as some of the other accessory components. So essentially conditioning it as it's proposed to be short-term rental use, not a full-time lived-in dwelling unit, was how we looked at that.
And the applicant indicated that it would be used for housing, possibly used for housing for construction workers during the duration of the construction, which we have been talking about could be upwards of 5 years.
No, I think in the same note, construction people could live in an RV slip as well if they had a trailer. So, but generally we looked at this as an accessory component and not as a full-time dwelling unit.
Thank you.
Along those lines, I think I read somewhere that these features that are added to the park, these modifications are only for park
Yes.
Clients or customers, right? So if someone's coming to visit somebody that has a slip at the RV park and they want to rent the cabin, it's because they know somebody that's staying there, it's a family or something like that, right? It's not just somebody, hey, I think I want to check out Philomath, I'm going to come stay at this cabin, I have nothing to do with this RV park.
No, I don't know if it gets into that level either. I guess how I look at it is like a yurt where you could rent that when you don't have a trailer or an RV and still use a recreational facility. So
Okay.
How is the city gonna govern that? Regulate that?
yeah, the condition of approval talks about not having it constructed to be intended to sold or divided off as a residential dwelling. So it would be in operation with the RV park. So
But also, the language I think staff used was non-transient lodging. That's Airbnb, hotel, motel, in my understanding, correct?
It all fits in the same category, yeah.
So what we're talking about is, can they even build the thing? What I'm asking is, if we're basing that decision on the actual use case, how's the city going to regulate the use case once it's built?
I don't know that we're regulating the use as much as we're saying we would know if they were to partition that piece off or file to partition that piece off and sell it individually as a residence,
Yeah.
right? So what we're saying is we would not allow that. It can only function as a part of a large RV park, and it's an accessory use of that RV park. So you have an RV park, you've got 3 cabins that function not that dissimilar than a slip that you would reserve for a night or a week or a month. That's going to be kind of similar transaction, and we're not going to govern that. We're just going to say and assume it's going to function the way that anything else would function. And, they could sell one of the slips to somebody on a private contract and we would never know the difference. Similarly, we'd never know the difference if that was done either, but we can only regulate what we can regulate, right? What we know about.
Yeah.
and I don't think I answered the question about setbacks, so they would still have to comply with building code standards, so there might be different construction methods.
Yeah, it's going to have to be a 4-hour wall. That's a given. Constructive, I'm just talking, but I'm just asking that question because we've gone to great lengths to provide landscape separations in our zone, in our different zoning categories. And the only zoning category that does not require any landscape separation is heavy industrial, but yet we're putting something that is definitely not heavy industrial in this particular case. Every place else in this project, as it relates to the RV park, it's all been brought in from the property line. It's just in these two instances, it's been taken to the property line. And that's my question.
Yeah.
You know, we have tried to create an environment that is pleasing, and now you're basically gonna have a 4-hour wall. The most economical way to build a 4-hour wall is CMU. You're gonna have CMU right along there. Now, I gather that's the train track too, isn't it?
Yeah, I was just gonna point out.
It's there.
All right, I'm gonna resend my question.
But yeah, on mod 6, you'll see, we did measure to see, and it has greater than 20 feet from North 19th. And there's
Yeah.
only 2 cabins, and they're both 0 lot line to the railroad property.
Okay.
And then the third is located interior to the property next to the dog park.
I thought that there was 2 of them that were on the property. Okay, I will resend my statement. Anybody else have anything?
Thank you.
Okay, as far as correspondence is concerned, is there any additional correspondence that staff has received in addition to what's included in the agenda packet? And I gather that's the Osborne's letter here,
Yeah,
which we did have in our packet earlier, and then we need a copy of it.
just that, yes.
Okay. Okay, we now would like to hear from the applicant.
Good evening, commissioners and staff. My name is Brian Van Daya, representing Glorietta Bay with Udell and Land Surveying. And with me is Scott Letman, one of the principals of Glorietta Bay. And so I'd like to say thanks, first of all, to your staff for giving such a fine overview. My planned presentation is probably going to mimic what Laura had by about 90% overlap. So I'm going to refrain from doing that in the essence of time. But I would like to touch on a couple of questions that were raised, maybe expand on the response, and then also give a little bit of color as to why we're here for the variance, if you will. So I'm going to jump right into the riparian area, if that's okay. I guess I'd like to point out or remind that property was once developed as a mill. The development code speaks heavily to what can and can't be done in riparian protection areas that have already been encumbered by previous developments or encroached upon projects. The areas that we're proposing to encroach have previously been encroached upon with gravel and other hard surfaced areas. So we don't feel like we're further encumbering that. We feel like we're allowed to do so based on the development code's language. We also have accepted previous original requirements or conditions that have asked that we take some of those areas that have been heavily encroached upon previously in other developments and enhance them with native landscapings, which we still plan to do when we get to our final plan. So I think that kind of builds on what Laura was explaining. We are going to enhance the areas that were previously disturbed. Those were conditioned upon us previously. The areas that were asking for the permissions, some of them were shown in the original plan, and that was one of our conditions that we had to come back and make that application. In doing that application, we revised some of the encroachments and pushed some other areas in and pulled some others out. So we feel like we're fully in compliance with the language that's in the code based on the previous disturbances that were done by other developments in the area. And I'd stop there and see if there's any further discussion.
We have to wait till your presentation is complete, and then there'll be an opportunity for us to ask questions.
So you're just loading now. You'll fire later. All right.
No, I'm not, never mind.
And then I wanted to explain a little bit of history with the gravel variance. So we proposed the same use in the original master plan. We just proposed the open boat and RV storage on a gravel surface in a slightly different footprint, and that can be viewed on, I believe, mod 2 sheet shows that, or no, sorry, mod 1. So mod 1 shows the original gravel boat and RV storage area, and it was proposed to be gravel. The condition of approval directed us to come back later and make an application for the variance to allow it to be gravelled. So Mr. Letman develops a lot of storage facilities in Oregon, and what his course of action in doing so is to do them in phases. And he always keeps the one phase out in front that's going to be developed later gravelled, so he can have open boat and RV storage. And then as he develops it with further buildings, he moves that to the next area. It works real good for him. It's a real clean appearance. The gravel works very well when compacted properly for people to maneuver in and park an RV or boat and get out very low speeds. There is some cutting of the tires, but the compacted gravel is proven to be very effective and efficient for doing so. Our feeling to pave it would frankly be a waste of resources, because we'd pave it, we'd tear it out when we moved into that phase, we'd pave it again, we'd tear it out, move it to the next phase, and it's a lot of money that's, we're not, frankly. So that's some history behind why we're here asking for the variance. It's not a change in plan, it's slightly different location, and we were conditioned to come back for the variance request in the original approval. Let's see, where else did I go? Actually, I think that's really it with what Laura's presented, with what we have in the staff, or what we had in our original submittal, with the modified condition of approval suggested by Laura. We've read and understand all of the conditions fully. We're willing to accept them as written with the one modification. And we'd ask that you consider the approval of the submittal this evening based on that testimony presented and discussed tonight.
Thank you very much. Is there any clarifying questions from members of the commission that has for the applicant?
Maybe I jumped the gun. My client would like to speak a little
No,
bit.
we'll hold off any comments you might have. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I listened to your comments and I appreciate that. I appreciate Chris and Laura's presentation and their support for this project. When we got it approved, it was approved in 2019. And it's 47 acres. It was a old mill site that had been abandoned and unused. And so you can't use any one use for the entire 47 acres. So we're trying to be creative in how we go about allocating the uses on that, which is kind of leads me to my next comment is when you do a development, it's uncertain whether or not it has any market acceptance, right? And this being not the biggest market, we want to have it attract each facility. We want it to be attractive and actually be more competitive than the competition than our the competing facilities that might be located in another larger community nearby. So because of that, after we looked at this, what we had planned for the RV park, we thought it would be great to add amenities. So one of the amenities that we had, or were going to have, was a pool, but in the community building. But in our experience at the RV park that I have in Albany, the Blue Ox RV Park, the pool isn't really used that much. And so you think, well, who would likely use the pool and how often do they use the pool? And so what we thought is we have room on the site to add some amenities. And so those amenities were a pickleball court, changing the location, the dog run, which allowed like a community event area in the northeast corner of the property. There was some discussion regarding the cabins. The cabins are kind of an ancillary amenity. What we really thought about was we don't have other uses. And so in the northwest corner of the site, that is going to be a shop. It's in the first floor, it's a shop. Because we have a footprint there for a shop, we thought, well, let's put a second floor on that. And so that's the cabin. So it's really a shop on the first floor for supplies and landscaping equipment and things like that. In the northeast corner, we thought because it's removed from the guests, and we wanted to put a fire pit out there and orientate it so that way there could be on the first floor, there could be pool table, ping pong table, another amenity, right? And the cabin above is intended to be an ancillary use. The other cabin, which is located where we're gonna put a future bridge across to the dog park, that is, we were hoping to have a shop for people that are in the park, that, a workshop, right? And then there was concern that I had that we have laundry facilities in the community building. But if the laundry facilities aren't sufficient, then that shop could be used for laundry. With the idea being is you're trying to anticipate potential problems. In the cabin on the second floor, of these buildings, what we wanted to do is have a private space where we're gonna have essentially a horse trough as that you'd fill up like a bathtub. But the idea being is in the winter or anytime during the year, people could go up there. It wouldn't be a pool, right? But people might enjoy that. It'd be a private space. And the properties that you mentioned that these cabins are adjacent to the property line. That's true. But the use on the other side, the owner is a nature conservancy. So there'll never, ever be any use other than what's there. So we thought that having the deck and the horse trough, I guess you'd say spa area, would be facing that direction, and it offers some privacy to, as an additional amenity to our customers. Let's see. There was a mention regarding construction workers. So the idea being is a lot of our existing customers at the Blue Ox RV Park are custom workers, construction workers that are working somewhere else in the city or county, as well as nurses, physicians. Quite interesting. And the debate that I had internally is when would be a good time to make these changes, right? Because we could build it as we originally planned, right? And we wouldn't have to come before this body. But because I wanted a RV park with substantial amenities, in other words, more of an adult playground atmosphere kind of thing, because I camp and I like having that we put a path around the park. We have these different amenities. I want it to be, I don't know if you could say a cool RV park, but that's the attempt. Regarding the comment from the Osbornes who live across the street, that's on a separate parcel that's not really part of this application. There's numerous big trees on the site. We have presently we have plans to brush the site out so that way we can identify the trees which we need to do for any future development. And it was there, and then the comments by the city engineer, Denny Muchmore, we support his comments. So I think that's it for my presentation. If you have any questions, we can attempt to answer them.
I guess there ain't my questions from the commission to the applicant.
Yeah, I just like, could you clarify what you meant about brush the site out to see the trees, or basically that's what you said, so.
Well, yeah, no one likes poison oak, I guess.
He hired my company to survey it, and I told him that he's gonna spend a lot of money with my guys with brush machetes. So we're gonna clear the underbrush so our guys can get around on site and identify the significant trees and get the topographic data that we need to collect. And this is not the property that's involved with what's before you tonight. It's a separate
Right.
piece of property.
Right, but
There
it's
will be brush.
part of the overall 47 acres.
Yes.
It was partitioned off into a separate parcel.
But it's not before us this evening.
Right, understood.
Okay, no other, oh, go ahead.
I just have a question of, just out of curiosity, what a flex industrial space, how you might define that, or like, give some examples of what that might look like.
So how did we end up with the flex industrial space? Well, so that entrance is this is an ODOT entrance, Oregon Department of Transportation entrance. There was not an entrance there before. So we had to apply before the Oregon Department of Transportation for an entrance. And they define the nature of that entrance. In the entrance on Inspiration Way, that's a right in and right out. So no one can go exit the property and turn left, go east on Highway 20. That location was determined because it has to be a certain distance from other intersections. So there's another intersection to the east, and so this location of Inspiration Way had to be over 300 feet from the other intersection, but before the off-ramp onto College Avenue. So what we wanted to do is we didn't think about having a flex space parcel, but because it isolated that, because our storage facilities need to be fenced and enclosed, we had this outlier parcel. So, and with the encouragement of Chris Workman, who wants employment in the community.
There you go, throwing my name out there.
Yeah, he had an excellent idea of using it for flex space. So flex space is essentially there are, I think, 9 2,000 square foot bays. In the building, there'll be a high ceiling. There'll be a top door and an entrance door. And flexible in the sense that, at least as I understand it, because I've never built these before, it could be and I don't know if I get the planning correct, but you'd have a shop building, and then you can modify it with more offices or less offices, that kind of thing. So I don't know that we have in our packet a picture of one, but it'll be about 18 to 20 feet tall. It'll be metal frame. It'll have a masonry skirt 4 feet up. And I don't know if I've answered your question.
No, that's great, thank you.
Yeah,
And you guys, are you gonna have signage for those spaces?
yes,
Those companies can market themselves?
yes.
That's cool. I had some questions. You have?
No,
Okay.
well, if I do, I'll go last.
So one of the encroachments in the riparian zone is this 15-foot strip of gravel that you guys are calling a viewing area.
Yes.
It's right next to the 10-foot wide walking path that's already planned behind the community building. Why?
It was
Why do you?
already disturbed.
So does that mean you're going to leave that as is, or you're going to?
Gonna
Put
clean
new
it,
gravel
clean it
down?
up and put new compacted gravel, so patrons of the park or people using the community building can basically hang out there and observe nature.
It's right next to the fence for the open lot for RV and boat parking, so they'd be observing that.
They're gonna be looking right into Newton Creek from here.
No,
It's right on the edge of Newton Creek.
Oh, okay. So the creek is on the other
Here's the
lot.
plan.
I see. So this is riparian zone that you don't want to improve. You want to leave it as is, which is in a disturbed state. It's not vegetated or anything. It's whatever's left over from the mill.
it has weeds.
But at the end of the day, we will be adding gravel and elevating it to the path's height so that people on the path can step off and use it
Okay.
to view nature.
Instead of,
Benches and stuff like that, benches on there,
no,
just gravel, like,
Just gravel is the plan unless you wanted to add a bench, so I don't.
instead
Yeah,
of,
there'll be seating and picnic tables and things like that, yeah.
instead of planting vegetation for the riparian zone.
In this area would be gravel.
Okay.
I do think it would be helpful to understand that when they were a mill back in the day, they just push the rock and gravel right up to the creek. That wouldn't, most cities have these riparian zones, varying depth. But my observation is that that's very typical. That's just what they did. They didn't really think about the, capacity of the creek or anything. They just wanted to get as much usable land.
Yep. I think I read somewhere in the application, there's going to be an easement for a public trail, which will go by the pickleball court. Is that correct?
Yeah, that easement's already been dedicated.
Yeah. Where does that easement or, future trail, where does that terminate? Does that go all the way to the highway? Or does it terminate
Without
at
having
the
a
second?
visual, I could.
Yeah, I was looking at mod 5. It looks like the easement. Yeah, mod 4 just shows that it ends at that lot.
And then it wanders to the south and ends at the crosswalk in our entrance.
Mhm.
And then the city's trail or parks master plan has it through the neighbor's property, and then we actually, in the property that we were talking about earlier, we've already dedicated facilities to that property as well. So it's intended to link to your park property to the south along the highway.
Yeah.
But we only control a certain segment of it with
Yeah.
11 property.
Yeah.
So we'll be building it on our property, and then we're setting it up to be extended further south, all the way to your park property along Route 24.
Okay. So as part of that, the pickleball court is encroaching part of that easement, which is riparian zone also. The city in their recommendations does not require you guys to revegetate any other zone. It's basically like you're encroaching in the riparian zone. It's less than 50%. The city's good with that. Would you be opposed to an amendment to the approval of having to restore other riparian zone in different parts of the site, equal to the amount that you guys are encroaching with the pickleball court and the gravel and other spaces?
No.
I don't-
I believe our landscape plan already shows us doing that, so.
Yeah.
So it may not be in the condition that we've submitted on landscape plan. restorations occurring.
You guys are gonna have to resubmit a landscaping plan as part of this variance, though, right?
We will certainly accept a condition that requires us to mitigate for like square footage of what we're proposing to cover with impervious or semi-impervious surface with this application.
That's good.
But you stated earlier that the pickleball court encroaches into that easement. It does not. It comes up right to the edge of it, but it does not get.
Oh, okay, yeah. I thought that's what I was looking at. I guess that is riparian zone. Wetlands in your legend, yeah. Okay. So these cabins, the second story was kind of just, it was a thought process that we need a shop. We want to build some, bathroom, shower amenities. We want to offer these amenities and workspaces as part of, the RV park. We're already going to have the footprint on the ground. Why don't we just, build another story on top of it for someone to stay in temporarily or permanently or whatever?
Somewhat like that. Thinking that we have some shop space in the reception building. We have a two-car garage for resident manager and a shop space. But you can never have enough shop space.
Right. Yeah.
Never. And so I go, okay, we need shop space. Well, and I'm not sure that the shop space we're proposing here is sufficient, but I hope it is. And I think the comment that you had is that the anticipated users of this could be their residents and that are there either on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. They invite family members or friends that could stay at the RV park. And so the design of the second floor is actually kind of where you go up the stairs and you have this cabin, right? And it'll have its own lock. And then there'll be, if you keep walking on the deck on the second floor, there'll be another lock, right? And that will be for the private space. So if the space is being used the way I imagine this, if there's someone using the space, right, then they'll have the entire use of their cabin and this deck with the horse trough. If no one's using it, it will be controlled and the residents of the park will use it as an amenity. And so the idea is intended to create more amenities. I went to a RV park convention and I met some people, and it's like one big playground. They like have bouncy houses and they have lakes and they can have all kinds of, people paddling around in boats. We can't do that here. But the idea being is, I know how the RV park that I have in Albany functions. And this is not a large market, so I need to amenitize the facility, I think, to be successful. And so that's what I'm attempting to do.
Gotcha. Going back to shop space, what do you foresee these shops being used for?
Well, the one in the northwest corner will be for our supplies, landscaping supplies, mower. We already have a mower that we bought.
The zero turn?
I think so. Yeah.
Well, be careful that you make your bridge to your dog park big enough to get your zero turn across it.
The bridge to the dog park is hopefully going to be 12 feet wide.
Yeah.
So And alls I want to do is make sure that the shop space we need, there isn't insufficient shop space, so it has to compromise the golf, this shop in the community, in the reception building is gonna have a golf cart in it.
I
Right?
guess what I'm getting at is, do you foresee any of these shops being used for repair on any of the RVs
Oh, no,
or types of equipment like that?
No.
So it'll just be like site maintenance,
yeah,
site-specific stuff? Okay.
yeah.
I think that's about all I got.
You have any questions?
Yeah, could you speak to your efforts to reduce dust or keep dust under control during construction?
During construction, well, we have a water truck. So during construction, we have to use the water truck. We also get the gravel that we're using is a 3/4 minus crushed rock out of the Rickard Pit east of town or west of town. And it's lovely stuff because it packs really well.
Yeah.
We have our roller on site, so we water it, we roll it, and it's hard as a rock.
Do you have any more piles to drive?
No,
can feel
those
it.
were only for the 2 bridges.
Yeah.
The other bridge, the bridge engineer tells me we're just gonna build some big blocks of concrete.
I'm sorry, we could feel those a year or so ago from across the highway. We could tell when they were driving by.
Yeah.
Other? Okay, let's see, it's 20 minutes after. Right now, we only have one person in public testimony. So I think we'll continue to do public testimony and then we'll take a break. Okay? So we will now begin with testimony in favor of the application.
Thank you both.
Anybody who wants to speak, I don't have anything from anybody, so we will go on. I'd like to hear anybody who's opposed to the application at this time. So we had, you didn't indicate, Janet, whether you were opposed or just wanted to speak. You're neutral, okay.
Thank you.
So then we don't have anybody to oppose. So is there anybody who has neutral testimony? Come on up.
My name's Jan Osborne, and I live on 20th Place. So right in front of our house is where we're discussing. But in hearing all of this, knowing that the oak trees are going to be a later project, I think I should have been at a different meeting. But I still have a concern. We've been there when the mill was still functioning, so it's been many years. And our concern is if any of the trees or any of the oak trees are going to be cut down, how do you know which ones are going to be the best ones? They'll probably get someone in there, I'm sure, who knows their stuff. But oaks grow to support each other. And with the winds that Philomath gets, I don't want one falling on our house or on our property. And we're, we'd rather stay there if possible. I guess that's, trees can fall anywhere, anytime, but if you disturb their patterns, as Mr. Cup knows, we're neighbors, so he's knows how tall those oaks are. We just don't want any chance of anything damaging anybody's. There's 2 houses, our neighbors and us across from that oak grove. So I guess I would like to, will I be notified as to another meeting when the trees are more talked about, or will they just take my concern now and deal with it. And then also, if one does happen to fall on our property, who pays for the damage? Is it an act of God or is it what, so that's another concern. And in listening to the meeting, I was wondering if there was going to be any entrance off of 20th Place to any of this new stuff, but it doesn't sound like it. And that would be nice. And then I appreciate Mr. Cup asking about the dust control, how they were going to plan on handling that. So that's mainly the safety of our property and our lives from the Oaks. It will be nice to see it cleared out as they were talking about, and I will appreciate that. And that's all I guess that's all I have to say.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Let's take about a 10-minute recess.
Can you give them an opportunity to respond?
The applicant,
Yeah, that's a hearing.
Do it when we come back.
if you want to, you can go ahead and do it now. Do you have any comments on the testimony that Ms. Osborne presented? She's-
Well, thank you very much for coming. The first thing I think we need to do is identify the trees. So at least as I understand it, before we can do anything with the trees, we have to identify them. So that means we have to survey, and we can't survey without brushing out the understory. Once you get in there, it's pretty clear, but because the overstory, no light's getting down below, but on the west side on 20th Place, light gets in, and so trees and brush get up, and we have to clear that out. So what I plan to do is hire a contractor with an excavator, essentially, with a brush hog to go in and kind of move it around. That will get it so that way the surveyor can get in there and the wetlands delineator can get in there. The prevailing winds, I used to play softball in Philomath quite a bit. And there is quite a bit of wind, but it's coming from the west. So I wouldn't think that the trees would be blown to the west. They'd be blown away from you. But despite that, the bigger trees are oak trees, and they can break branches and things like that. I don't mind coming out and meeting with you and you pointing out to me whatever trees that you think are a concern. In that process, each city's different, and they may require an arborist to evaluate the tree, but I don't want you to feel threatened by these trees. And if the trees did fall on your property and damage something, they'd be my responsibility. So I don't know if that gives you any comfort.
It does.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Chair, if I could just make a comment, just want to verify on the record, the trees we're talking about, it's been said, but just clarify again, these are on a separate parcel that aren't part of the application that we're discussing tonight. It's a separate parcel, same property owner, different parcel. What we've heard, sounds like there is maybe some plans for some type of future development there, but at this point, it's just some exploratory work being done to survey the lot, look at the trees. But just, again, for the record, doesn't have anything to do with the application before us tonight. But appreciate Mr. Letman addressing the concern of the neighbor. So happy to take the time, but not part of tonight's application.
Appreciate it. All right, now we'll take a 5-minute break.
City Osborne's trip to another planning.
But
All right. Calling the meeting back to order. Moving on to responses to testimony. Does the commission have any additional clarification questions of staff? Okay.
Do you want to clarify that language on B3?
Can we ask that you draft out on a piece of paper to give to us, but the modification should be sometime during our deliberation. And that way whoever makes the motion will be able to add that. Thank you. The staff wish to respond to any questions or issues raised during public testimony. Okay. All right. Is there a request for continuance? Do you see any reason to continue for a continuance? Okay. Is there any request to hold the record open? All right. Does the applicant waive its 7-day period to submit final written argument after the closing of the record?
Yes.
Close the public hearing. All right. Commission members deliberate evidence and testimony presented during the public hearing. Anybody want to start?
Good, Tim. What do you got? I got some stuff. I just haven't collected all my thoughts yet.
Well, I still have a little bit of concern over just the resident, the cabins. I'm not going to take exception to it. So I myself have no significant concerns over the application.
Yeah. Parking was another question I had about those. I mean, I see they have one spot here. I think there was 2 over here. I don't know if this one has any. But if they're, yeah. Oh, I did want to mention though, Tim, you brought up in our code, table 184520, allowed uses for heavy industrial. The first thing it lists is uses allowed in the light industrial zone is part of the allowed uses.
Right.
And in the light industrial zone, it specifically lists caretaker dwelling.
Which they do have.
These could also be caretaker dwellings, but in the application, they were specifically listed as Airbnb. And it sounds like their intent is to rent them out. And the city has no way of really controlling that either. So it comes down to, do you let them build them or not?
And, by the letter of our code, I would be questioning exactly the way you're questioning it.
Yeah.
I'm thinking by the intent of their use and the intent of other similar facilities that have such things. It sounds like it's going to be managed through their own reservation system. Like whether I had something with wheels under me, install number 141, or whether I rented it's the same application to it. And so I wish they would have used a different word than cabin. And there's a few other things, but overall, I don't see our code saying we have to exclude it.
Right. Yeah, that's where I'm at. I don't know if there's a strong case for us to exclude it.
Yeah. So,
because it's here, it's proposed. The city, they don't have any problem with it. Yeah, I don't have a strong reason to disallow them. It just seems kind of wishy-washy, I guess.
I think when we get into looking at the revisions of our code, this is one area that we probably ought to look a little deeper into.
Yeah, but I mean,
And
how
I
many
think
more
really-
RV parks are gonna come to form?
But it's, yeah, I think is more of clear definition what an auxiliary use is.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree with that.
I think that's where it needs to be
Yeah.
addressed.
Let's
But
save that
based-
discussion for another time.
That's right. So as far as, so I take no exception.
Actually, I did have a question of staff, maybe if it's not too late. In SDR three, conditions of approval, you guys have listed all conditions of the original development master plan and associated site design review approvals. We don't really know what those are. And I would also note that all the documents that you noted in your presentation, you can't access them on the city's website. They might be, parts of them might be included in our packet, but I tried to open those specific files and it said, no, you don't have permission to open that file. So if they're supposed to be available to the public, they're not, I don't think. But the website's confusing and finding the files is even confusing, so I don't know if we really need to know what's in the original development master plan and associated site design review approval, like in any of that documentation, for us to approve this. But it seems like it hinges on that pretty big.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I
We're
know that-
approving a variance to that, right?
So this condition to alert essentially any reviewer that takes a look at this, 10 years from now, if we're looking at it, to the previous land use approval. So it ties those together. So it's essentially written as a clear condition of approval, just as a reminder to look at the plan development that was originally approved.
Yeah, that's exactly what's
Yeah.
happening tonight.
Yeah. The alternative would to rewrite all those conditions of approval, which would be a little bit redundant.
Yeah.
I can see your point about
I'm not
including
asking
those
for
for
that.
review in the staff report.
Yeah.
Could have been done, those
I mean, I
documents.
don't know, is there anything critical in there that we should know? Seems like maybe.
On those, the conditions of approval essentially outline at what point in time certain items need to be complete. So either at a final plat stage or prior to building permit or occupancy. Those are what's included in the
When was
original.
that document created? When were those approvals?
Yeah, I believe it was,
The applicant indicate 2019.
I'm just trying to think like what version of code were those approved on, right? Because we changed some of that code since then.
None of that's been,
None of this? Heavy industrial, light industrial? That's
none of
some
that's
the
been
first-
changed. It's never gone to, we've never approved it and sent it to the city council, so it has not been changed. We're still based on,
Is that the second half of our meeting? Is it, that's residential today, isn't it?
yeah, well,
No, I
But
thought we
we
went
still
through industrial, commercial.
yeah, we did review it, but the code
never
was
got
never
approved?
ratified because it was
Okay.
never
Oh, it's
finalized.
still based on this.
It's still based on that,
Okay,
whatever the last
okay.
date of that. Anybody else have any, or do you have any more?
Yeah, but I mean,
No, go ahead, Josiah.
well, it's temporary storage area, for 5 years. What's the on that? 5 years, and then they can extend it if they continue use after that period requires approval of a new land use application, which would not come before this body. The city manager would probably approve that. So are we good with 5 years on for this construction deal?
Do you see that as too much or too little?
I don't really have an opinion on it. I
I don't know if it's
know.
always gonna be just construction siting for 5 years.
Yeah,
You know, it's, the intention of the space was to be RV and boat storage, open RV and boat storage.
Yeah.
And that it would still be gravel
Yep.
until the next phase of either the RV park or storage units or flex industrial space or whatever
Yeah.
they decided to. But
And I think part of your question to staff a few minutes ago was, what was the conditions of the original approval? The original approvals had those durations in it, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I mean, the applicant asked for 10 years, 5 to 10 years, so.
Yeah. But they're written from staff's 5
That's,
years.
that's a question I wish I would have asked if, you know, because staff is applying the 5-year maximum on that. I was curious if that creates any kind of hardship in the construction schedule or anything for the applicant, because they're asking for 5+ years.
Well, they can always come back and get an extension.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's all I've got for now. I mean, I have a couple other ones, but I still kind of need to put it all together in the brain.
my general comments are, I felt the staff report was very well laid out on the criterion and whether or not the proposed activities meet the criterion. So that was really helpful. And I think the conditions of approval are also very clear. So I appreciate that. And I'm in, my stance is that I would vote to approve these 3 applications.
Mike, do you have any comments?
Not really.
Okay, it's okay.
The 5-year thing, though, I asked about that, so, but that's not a big deal, I don't think, so. And it sounds like from a controlling dust perspective, there's plans in place for that, things like that, so, I don't know.
Yeah, that's like construction performance kind of stuff. City's just gonna manage that. I understand the concerns, and I mean, I agree, like, you know, city of Philomath, we pride ourselves on being a logging town, and we've got all these beautiful legacy trees, but we don't have any code to protect them, you know, because, yeah, I mean, it's really up to the city to work with the applicant on what stays and what a final landscape plan looks like. Talked about this riparian zone? I kind of do.
Please.
Newton Creek is a mess. And it's it's no fault of the applicant at all. You know, it's the result of, you know, hundreds of years of industrial use and not a lot of oversight. But Newton Creek runs into residential areas. I mean, it's right along the bike path, isn't it? That's Newton Creek. So everything, you know, where the public gets to appreciate this creek is all downstream of this. So some of these encroachments, you know, I get the applicant wants to add amenities, and I also hear revenue streams. But this big patch of gravel, you know, I don't understand that one. A viewing area, maybe, you know, I mean, it seems like they could do something else with that to help kind of repair some of the damage that's been done to the creek instead of just throwing more gravel on it. That's the same thing that's been done for however many years.
Well, I'd rather see gravel than pavement
That's true, and there's already a lot of pavement in this project.
because mobility issues, if you're walking that walking path, you're meeting up with a friend to do your walk, you need that kind of area perhaps, or maybe, you know, hang out and chat longer. You know, I think it's way better than anything paved. And I don't know, just bird watching is a very growing pastime. And there's a lot of really beautiful nature that if you had a spot where you could just sit and look for a while, I don't feel like we have a ton of that, you know. We've got Mary's River Park and, there's a lot.
And even that's under construction too.
Yeah, so I think that I think it's a great amenity, and I think that based on what's probably there now and what it had been, I think, I don't have a problem with gravel. It's permeable, it's, it's a place for people to congregate and hang out and enjoy nature. So, and I think also with that point that, the question you asked the applicant about like boosting up or pumping up other areas and of areas of restoration or additional landscape is like, that made me be like, yes, that's great.
Yeah.
This area seems to be a good space for that type of amenity.
Yeah.
But, if there's other areas that can create additional habitat and additional, green space, I think that's and I think it's in their best interest to do that too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Part of their redesign of the community center is that they're making this big patio just on the other side of the gravel of the walking path. So I was kind of thinking like, well, it's a huge gravel patch. And it just seems like instead of doing a restoration effort, we're just gonna, clean it up a little, but not really. In my mind, it doesn't really restore the creek, the health of the creek. So those are my thoughts.
Well, this is a short section of the creek, right? So there's a lot more of the creek above and below this spot, so. And yeah, I'm not, I wish I knew, I can't picture in my mind exactly where I'm standing to look to see if I'm seeing any wildlife, birds or what have you. So I almost wish I would have visited the site. Maybe I could have gotten a better idea of what that looks like. But to ask, after all the years of neglect, to ask somebody that's coming in to try to develop the area into something better, I'm not sure it's fair to ask them to take on the expense of revamping things, if you know what I mean. So I don't know how much gravel is currently there. I heard there's gravel there, so the idea was to enhance that and make it level with, I think, the walking path, I believe. So maybe that's necessary, and if so, okay, fine. Like I said, I hesitate to think whether or not you're really going to see much in the way of wildlife, but if there's a chance, what the heck, let's do it.
So I probably need I need to figure out some language for SDR 12, I think.
Eric, can I speak to that a little bit? I'd made a comment earlier about maybe some changes to that language. But reading through it a little bit further, it does talk about, before construction, ground disturbance with the repairing corridors, submit final plans. Then it's into compliance with the landscaping chapter there. Plan shall identify the limits of disturbance, construction methods, erosion control measures, and then this part is the part I didn't read until after I'd spoken. It does specify restoration and enhancement planting. So that plan will have to identify both. What are the enhancements and what are the restoration plantings that are being done, and, attribute that in both cases. So I'm pretty confident, based on what we've heard from them, that that's from the staff standpoint, that's what we'll be looking for, is we'll be looking for both restoration and enhancement plantings that are identified on their landscape.
Yeah, but you guys specifically point at 1850. overlay district, which one was it? Just 1854, Jim, overlay districts. Let me see. So, okay, 1855 just identifies the riparian zones.
You look at 18.5.090.
90? Oh, right, we were looking at 90, weren't we?
This one talks about permanent alterations of the riparian area by placement of structure or impervious surface may be permitted upon demonstration that equal or better protection for the remaining on-site riparian protection overlay zone will be ensured through restoration of riparian areas, enhanced buffer treatment, or similar measures.
In no case shall such alterations occupy more than 50% the width of the riparian area measured from the upland edge of the corridor. Yeah, we need to work on that language. Yeah, I really like the idea of, if you're gonna encroach, I don't know what the square footage, but for just the gravel part, it's 2,600, 2,700 square feet. If they're gonna enhance 2,700 square feet of riparian zone somewhere else to offset that, and whatever the offset is for the pickleball court and where else?
The propane.
The propane?
Yeah.
Yeah, propane's in
Yeah, propane, yeah. But if they're gonna enhance riparian zone to offset all that square footage somewhere else in the riparian zone, I like that. I just don't see any of that language specifically in staff's conditions of approvals. So I wanna make sure that gets in there.
Okay, so we will include a statement indicating that for the square footage of these three areas that are within the riparian zone, that additional work be done in other riparian areas to bring it back to the natural habitat, I guess, of equal square footage or more, something to that effect.
Yeah, SDR 12 also doesn't include the propane station.
Know what it is. So,
Is there more specific language you want other than the reference say that the plans demonstrate compliance with chapter 18.55? And we refer back to the portions that Laura just read, or do you want more specific language?
I think we want more specific language because, just basically indicating
Okay, so let's put a motion on the table and let's go ahead and identify that as a condition of approval, or either amended this or an additional condition of approval.
Yeah, I think I need the language for the motion though.
The attorney for the applicant mentioned, I didn't write it down perfectly, but that to mitigate proportional areas in other parts of the site,
yeah, that's a better way of putting it.
rather than getting into
I agree.
based
And we can
on,
also do that as part of our motion, when we go to do our motion. We can include that.
Well, if you want to add or modify condition of approval, you can do that now during deliberation as well, by the way.
Do you want to restate that and make a motion to modify this item in the approval?
sure. I move that we modify the conditions of approval for SDR 12 to add the wording related to mitigating proportional areas that are impacted in the riparian zone in other parts of the site.
And by approving this, we're not approving it, the overall, we're just approving to add that language.
Yeah,
Is there a second?
well, I want to modify that still
little
a
bit
little
more?
more.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to include, in this language, it says this.
I withdraw my motion.
No, you don't need to withdraw it. We're just going to amend it.
Well, there's no second on the motion yet, so.
Right. SDR 12 states, this requirement applies to the 2,690 square foot viewing area, the 877 square foot portion of the pickleball and basketball court. I want to also include 310 square feet of propane filling station, and the patio improvements located within the setback. And I also want to include language to improve proportional areas in other parts of the site. How does that sound?
We get that in one motion.
Okay.
But you didn't ask.
I want to amend SDR 12, riparian setback improvements to read, before construction or ground disturbance within the 50-foot riparian setback, the applicant shall submit final plans demonstrating compliance with Chapter 18.55 PMC and obtain all required city, state, and federal approvals. The plan shall identify the limits of disturbance, construction methods, erosion control measures, restoration and enhancement planning, and long-term maintenance. This requirement applies to the 2,695 square foot viewing area, the 877 square foot portion of the pickleball and basketball court, 310 square foot of propane filling station, and patio improvements located within the setback. Applicant shall also submit plans to improve proportional areas in other parts of the site.
I heard, can I ask for clarification? So I heard riparian buffer area only and then other areas. Can we clarify what's intended there? Just the riparian buffer or?
Yeah, right. You're right, yeah. So I amend other parts of the site to read riparian zone.
Other parts of the
Other
riparian
parts of the
zone.
riparian zone, yeah.
And I believe you said 877 square foot portion of the pickleball court.
887.
I'm assuming you meant 887?
Yeah,
Yep.
sorry, thank you.
That's okay, just
Yeah.
make sure we got it clear.
All right. Is there a second for that?
I'll second
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Any other modification?
I think we had another modification on V3, page 33.
Yeah.
And I think I have, Lauren, most of those language for that. That would be the strikeout.
Would be the inclusion.
Okay. You want to,
Sure.
go ahead and send it down.
Let's do.
She's got the strikeout, and then on the other page, the underline is the inclusion.
Okay.
And that's it. Thank you.
So I make a motion that we amend V3 on page 33 of the packet, engineered non-paved surfaces, to read, the vehicle storage, construction staging, access, travel aisle, and maneuvering areas shall use an engineered compacted aggregate base rock surface approved by the city engineer and public works director. Ordinary loose gravel without an approved stabilization system is not permitted. The approved system shall, and then as written in the conditions of approval.
I'll second that.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any other modifications?
So he's capped.
Huh?
He's capped. Can they be zero lot? line?
Yeah,
They can't?
they can.
Doesn't matter that they're backing up to a railroad easement?
I think that's what that is, except the applicant indicated that it was a wildlife area.
On the other side.
Yeah, on the other side of the railroad tracks. Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna fall on the sword
Yeah,
on this.
I didn't look it up and I don't,
I
I mean, that'll
looked
be
it
up to
up.
the city to approve those buildings anyways.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
code can require, fences and setbacks and buffers between industrial uses and residential
Right.
zones.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we don't
That
have
just isn't
that.
the case here, right?
Yeah.
You've got an industrial and, the zone or the use is a residential to the north, and so it's kind of moot as far as what would be there.
Yeah.
And yeah, whatever gets constructed will have to have a building permit.
Yep.
The
Because
structure itself.
in our landscape code, industrial, we have no landscape requirements.
There is a greenbelt requirement along with street frontage.
Street frontage, but not railroad frontage.
Okay. I'm just asking a question to make sure we leave it, nothing, no stone unturned.
Yep.
Unturned, overturned?
Good question. Unturned.
All right.
All right.
Anything else?
Somebody want to make a motion? Is there any more discussion? How's that? Somebody want to make a motion? I can't find the pages in this 250 pages in front of me. I'm lost, so I don't normally do it anyway. as
I'll go
chair.
ahead and- I'd like to move that we grant type 3 quasi-judicial applications for Glorieta Bay LLC, a preliminary partition plat, creating approximately 0.080 acre parcel and a 15.21 acre parcel, remainder parcel. 2, major modifications to previously approved development, including changes to the size and configuration of the approved self-storage and industrial flex space buildings, the addition of 3 short-term rental cabins operated only as integral components of the approved RV park, additions and modifications to the RV park recreational amenities, and the temporary relocation of RV, boat, and vehicle storage areas, and 3, a Class B variance to allow gravel surfacing of the temporary storage areas,
Including the amended.
including the amended conditions of approval
Yeah.
presented. Yeah, is that okay?
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
You give a little bit more in your script.
Oh, hold on a second. If any participant is not satisfied with the decision, they can appeal to the city council in 21 days. Date of decision. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
We are at 8:00.
All right, do we want to take another break or we just want to jump into this? Anybody wants to roll?
Yeah.
All right, so I say, I gotta go back and find the meeting minutes. The order of business tonight.
45 in the back.
Yeah, but,
I don't think you guys.
no, I have it somewhere.
This is perfect. Here
we go, here we go. Here we go. All right, so old business residential code audit.
I'll just start by kicking off. I want to introduce Dan Fishman. He's with Oregon Cascade West Council of Governments, or Oregon Cascade West, as they are now branding themselves. Longtime planner, state of Oregon. I'll let him kind of fill some of that detailed information, but essentially the city was given a grant from Department of Land Conservation Development to do an audit of our residential development code, part of the acknowledgement from DLCD that they've been throwing a ton of new provisions at municipalities. And so with that, they provided some grant funding to help cities hire outside consultants and planners to come and look at our code and make recommended changes to that code. So I'll let Dan steal his thunder, but I would just note many of the things that you'll be looking at from Dan are noted in the audit as state required. And then there are some other things that we're looking at in the residential code that are recommendations, some of which is based on residential code that he was provided by me, which is all the residential code that we've been talking about over the last couple of years. And then other things that have kind of dripped in over the last couple of years in that time as well. So Dan will be very clear on the state required stuff as opposed to some of the provisions that we've been looking at and where that's clear. He does have a presentation, so I'll pull that up and share that on the screen, and I'll turn the time over to you, Dan.
Super, thank you. Pleasure to be here. Chris provided half my presentation already.
No.
Okay, we get it.
As far as the background of how we got to here, very briefly, I am a very part-time planner with the Council of Governments. I was the planning director in Staten for 17 years, and then when I retired, I said, nope, this isn't working. And
Where I grew up.
got hired by the Council of Governments, and to use a sports analogy, I'm kind of the pitch hitter and utility infielder. When they've got a little project, I get handed it, and here I am. So, okay, good, you've got that.
Want a free trial?
No,
Want to
we
learn more?
don't want to learn anything.
Trying to get it to a substantial enough size that we
Full
can
screen.
see it here. Okay, I think
So-
it's.
As you all know, you all have been working on a code update for years and years. I actually was here virtually not quite a year ago, I think it was, talking about the climate-friendly area amendments. As the city and the state has realized, or really as the state has realized that we've really got a serious housing crisis in this state, the legislature for the past probably 5 or 6 years keeps passing new laws that say cities and counties either have to do something or may not do something in their land use codes. As Chris said, as a result of that, grant money has been made available to cities to update their codes. And the grant that you have received is to do an audit of the code to identify which areas of state law you're not in compliance with. And associated with that, I've suggested additional amendments to your ongoing update project to come into compliance. So in your packet should have been essentially a cover memo from me explaining all of that and what else was in the packet. The audit memo that goes through, I never counted them, but 15 or 20 different state statutes and what their requirements were. And the whole 240 page or so code update, maybe to get rid of the packet, but anyway, that was provided. And
159, I believe.
whatever, it's an awful lot. And I set it up so that all of the amendments that you were working on in the past are in red, and my suggested new amendments are in blue, just so you can easily see what it is I've suggested. Some of them, some of the amendments are in response to statutory requirements, and others, based on my conversations with Chris and Laura, are more aspirational, optional, but reflect best practices or just how to make things work more smoothly, or different ideas that they said, oh, hey, we're interested in including this or that.
Have you identified in the audit which is which?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
thank
so
you.
the audit memo has a matrix, a table
Right.
that is
I'm
all the
looking at it.
mandatory stuff.
Okay.
And then a narrative description of each of those, and then there's a section for other amendments. And my slideshow tonight will do that as well.
Okay. Oh, I see.
I think, Chris, we've done about 3 or 4 of the next slides, and we're ready to get into the statutory framework. So yeah, and audit results. So, I'm not gonna tonight recite the ORS section numbers, but the law now says that cities may not limit occupancy of a dwelling unit based on familial relationships. So your definition of what is a family says that it can't be any more than 4 unrelated individuals. So the suggested amendment is to say it's 1 or more people living together as a housekeeping unit. That's what that's what constitutes a household or a family. There is a section of statute that restricts local control over the conversion of an existing mobile home park into a subdivision. And your code is silent on that issue. Without these suggested amendments, would treat it like any other subdivision, but the statute is very clear on that, essentially saying you need to approve it if it's not increasing the number of lots, and all it's doing is taking an existing development and making the rental lots ownership lots. So again, suggested amendment establishes a new section to comply with those statutory restrictions.
So if our code doesn't talk about it, we need to talk about it? Is that the suggestion?
Yes, the suggestion is you have a section that if an existing mobile home park wanted to be divided into individual lots, that you can't apply the normal subdivision review process and zoning standards to it.
Yeah, okay.
So that's what the statute says. You can't treat it like a vacant piece of land that's being developed. Next is your definition of what a family daycare is. Currently limits it to up to 12 children. A recent amendment in statutes says 16 kids. So simply changing 12 to 16 in your definition.
12, 16, what's the big deal?
Right, 4 more toddlers running around the neighborhood. For a number of years, the statutes have said that all of your regulations regarding housing have to be clear and objective. No discretionary standards for approving site plan, you call it site development review here, site development review for an apartment building or for a residential subdivision. Everything needs to be clear and objective standards. And recent changes in statute have said that residential partitions, residential subdivisions, and residential site development review need to be staff level decisions. Your amendments were moving in that direction, but there are new amendments just from last session that restrict appeals. Only the applicant may appeal the staff decision to you for those types of residential developments. So anyway,
There were a couple of subjective standards that I found in the code that I said, that's a little discretionary. I've suggested changing them to be more objective, clear and objective, as well as suggested a number of amendments to come into compliance with these new codes, these new statutes regarding the appeals process. And it's also notice. I say, cities are no longer allowed to notify neighbors beyond 100 feet.
No longer allowed to notify.
Right, you are limited. You may notify only up to 100 feet away from the subject property.
The code used to say at least 200 feet away. Now it says no more than 100 feet away.
Right.
So they're restricting notification to the surrounding property owners.
The city posting these things on the website?
Still postal, these are direct notifications by mail that we send, the
Right.
letters to neighbors. We'll still do the sign
Let's just.
on
It's
site.
just the adjacent property. Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Fundamentally.
so I mean, in a standard residential neighborhood, it'll then be, the next door neighbors and maybe the people on the other side. And that's it. I know in Staten, it was 300 feet that we notified everybody.
Yeah, I come from, I remember it was 500. Where I came from. We had to notify within 500 feet. 100 feet.
Yeah,
But again, we'll still do sign on site, we'll still do the website, there's still.
right, you can still do all the other notice, but as far as the notice of a hearing or application received that goes out in the mail,
The effective ones.
right, the ones that people see.
Most of them, yeah. Although I think our sign on site is pretty effective,
Yeah, it is.
because anybody walking by, driving by, that's gonna get people's attention. So that's a good provision that we have.
For the past, probably 5 or 6 years now, statute has prohibited cities from including standards on accessory dwelling units that limit ownership or require a separate parking space. And you do both in your current code. You say either the principal dwelling unit or the accessory has to be owner occupied.
Now, does that mean that an ADU can be sold but not the land underneath it? Is that what that means?
I
I interpret it that, like, I have an ADU and I have a house. I can walk away from it and rent them both out.
Right, they can both be rental units.
I can make them both rental units.
But
I
you
don't
own
have
them
to,
both.
huh?
You own them both.
Well, I own them.
But they're not owner occupied.
But the way our code says now, one or the other has to be owner occupied.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
Now it says that they both can be rented.
That is limited to the R1 and the R2 and R3.
Yeah.
That's not a requirement, but in the R1, we wanted owner occupied, and that provision's been taken away by the state. And has for a while, and I did want to clarify just one thing. Our code is not compliant. The city is compliant because we've been following state law. When a new state law comes, it takes effect. We follow the state law regardless of what our current code says. So what we're trying to do is bring our code into compliance with state law. So I don't want to put out there that we're following our code and we're not compliant with state. Our code's not compliant, but from the staff position, we're following state law on all of these provisions.
So
It have been.
are there is there any activity to remedy that in the future? So that way, as the state changes things that affect our code, that we've got work done right away to take care of the code changes necessary?
We've got caught up in a development code that typically we do. Typically about once a year, we'll do code amendments. We got caught in a period where we didn't have great planning staff that was available to take those provisions on. And we also took a really, really big bite of a big elephant and got our mouth full where we couldn't swallow. So we took off, we were doing residential and commercial and industrial. And I'm giving you a little bit of history because I know you're new on the commission, but we tried to take on a whole bunch and we were managing that. And then we lost our staff and we haven't been able to replace that staff until recently. And so a lot of the easy little low-hanging fruit provisions that the state changes, we hop right on and do, we've not been able to do because we've got this big development code amendment that we're doing rather than these annual smaller bites of the apple, so.
So we get through this big chunk and then we should be okay after that.
We will annually have changes to the development code, but they will be minor changes. And to Dan's point, the state is making a large number of changes, right? So we're not alone in feeling like we're behind in our development code updates. Most cities in the state are feeling that way right now because of the number of new provisions that the state is putting forward that they traditionally haven't. They've traditionally allowed the cities to develop their own code and go through their own processes, and that's being overdone right now, so.
That's why they had to throw money at us to get it done.
I had a question about the parking. Was that supposed to be off-street parking or?
Yeah.
It
It was, okay.
Well, it is.
It is.
Yeah,
Currently.
yeah, but then we have the major transportation corridor issue that kicks in that says quarter mile or half mile each side?
Half mile.
Half mile each side. All parking requirements are gone.
Wow.
So even, we were talking about the parking in the project we saw tonight. I think that's within a half mile, even the parking for those cabins.
Yeah, probably.
And it would, the state would have said, no, we can't require it.
Okay.
I'm going down the table, I know you go down the slides. Duplex is required to be allowed in each lot zone residential. You say our code's in compliance?
The amendments that I received
Oh,
are in
okay, all right, thank you.
So,
Okay,
yeah,
yeah, we
let me
made
clarify
that- we
My
made that
review
change.
is based on the
Our draft.
June 25 draft
Thank you.
of amendments.
Okay, because I'm going, yeah, I remember
Right,
that.
you're already going down that road, so I didn't say you needed to.
Thank you.
So a whole new topic is, and I think this was 2 years ago, the legislature said that every city needs to allow single room occupancy development, which is essentially an apartment building where not every apartment is a complete dwelling unit. There might be shared kitchens or bathrooms.
It's kind of like our Harriet houses.
Yes.
Home
Okay.
share.
That's
Right,
it.
we, in Staten, we had a big building that was shared bathrooms and kitchens, and so, your code is silent about that, and, there's some suggested new, you have to allow them in any residential zone.
So you can go into an R1 and say, I'm gonna put in
But in-
basically a dormitory.
Yep,
That's fundamentally what it is.
yep,
Forty house?
yep.
Yeah.
For many years, statute has prohibited you from applying standards to manufactured housing on an individual lot that do not also apply to a site-built house next door. And you've got a bunch of architectural and design standards in the code for manufactured housing that don't apply to site-built housing. So I've suggested deleting those provisions that don't apply to site-built housing.
Roof pitch, siding material, skirting, that kind of stuff.
Isn't there something in there about like having a hitch visible?
Yep, that's in the code.
Yeah,
I
strike
like that because there are no hitches on site-built houses. So I've suggested
put one on
leaving
the
that.
just to have it.
Yeah, right, and there's not, I mean, that's left over from probably 1970s, 1980s regulation of manufactured housing.
I've got a question because we've never addressed it, but this, if you have a homeowners association that says your minimum roof pitch is 5 and 12, because of all these changes, that homeowner association requirement is null and void as well.
No,
So homeowners associations can still come in and say, you need a 5 and 12, you gotta have a minimum 1,800 square foot, no
Yep.
manufactured houses.
Yep. Yep.
Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Yep. They can't say no Jews, blacks, or Italians,
Right,
but other than that,
so,
Start a HOA, Tim? Or you-
no. Actually,
Those are all private.
technically, we have an HOA that has never been initiated.
Yeah.
But legally, in our deeds, there's an HOA there,
Really?
but it's never been constituted. No, we don't want it.
those are all private agreements between
Yeah.
those of you who chose to buy within the development.
So if an HOA says minimum lot size is a quarter acre, I'm just asking the weird question. I know I'm taking time, but it's giving me an idea of how to think about some of these things, just to understand them. When our code says maximum 10,000 square feet.
Yeah, the
I
city
can't put it,
maximum
well-
would hold first. I mean, the lot's gotta be established for the HOA can, so. They can't directly contradict a minimum requirement of the city.
Okay,
Yeah.
They can go beyond, but they can't reduce the minimum.
Yeah.
and since the city is mute on the roof pitch, they can require any roof pitch they want. I'm just trying to go through, I'm interested in processes.
Yeah.
And so the steps that you would go through to say yay, nay, or whatever. Okay,
Yeah, I think
it makes sense. I just need to understand it.
And they'll correct me, but I think technically the city could have a minimum required roof pitch for all roofs.
Sure.
But we can't single out manufactured homes versus non-manufactured homes.
But if we said
It would have to be clear and
we said it
objective.
was 4 and 12 and it effectively gets rid of manufactured homes, we
have to
would
have
probably
the
have a
standard
problem.
Across all housing types. Yeah, that'd be the problem.
Okay. So we could do it, but we really couldn't.
You'd have to apply it uniformly, yeah, so we're
Yeah.
be careful about what the unintended consequences would be.
Yeah, and as we
We may
go
get a-
through and
Yeah.
develop our code, we've got to look in detail that we don't do something like
We
what I
might
just
get a
suggested.
lawsuit saying we're exclusionary, intentionally being exclusionary. right?
Okay. Thank you.
So, next one is, mobile home parks. Statute says that you may not have a minimum lot size for a mobile home park larger than 1 acre. Your code currently requires 5 acres. So, suggested amendment to come into compliance. The statute defines what affordable housing is and requires you to allow affordable housing owned by, I'm not gonna have the whole list in the top of my head, governmental entities, nonprofits, religious organizations in commercial zones, whether your other housing is permitted there or not. You had a section in your amendments that addressed that, but it wasn't as complete as far as who could own it and where it needed to be located. So, again, suggested amendments to come into compliance with the statute and also adds a new definition as to what is affordable housing. And I think there was a new definition. The part of the definition of affordable housing was referred to area median income, certain percentage, so defined what the area, what that term means.
And could that be restricted to a conditional use permit?
I think not. I think the
Oh,
code, I think
straight
the
up.
statute says cities shall allow affordable housing in these locations.
In what you've got written here, actually, is it up there, written up? Yeah, it says in commercial and public zones?
Yes, and public zones, yes.
So theoretically, on public land,
School district
well, okay, or
or,
cities,
or a city park, I don't know how you zone your public zone here.
Medium fire district, fire Station, that's all public.
In Dayton, most of
It's
the
all
churches
green.
were in the public zones, and I know I had discussion with a church that was interested in pursuing some housing,
Okay.
and I had to say, well, that sounds like a great idea, but we'll have to change the code or the map. And then I think they realized not just what that meant, but what the whole project would mean, and I never heard from them again.
So the definition of affordable housing is tied to median income, you said?
It's, and again, I don't have the whole thing in my head, but yes, it's that a certain percentage of the units are affordable to households making 60% of the area median income, or whatever the percentages are, it's something like that.
And that was at ORS
That's,
defined, or it's gonna be defined in our
it's
code?
good, yes, it's in the proposed definition changes that you've got in front of you.
So I have a question on, similar to this. It sounds like we need some language to define affordable housing in our code. Would it be better for us to copy and paste the ORS language or just point to the ORS?
I copied and pasted the ORS line.
Is that,
I believe that's a lot better than sending the reader to go look something else,
Okay,
something up elsewhere.
so when ORS changes that, we've got to update our
Right,
code
if
language?
the legislature were to change the 60% to 50%, just hypothetical numbers, then when you do your annual review,
Okay.
that should be a change we make. Or when they change the number of kids allowed in a family daycare center up to 18 instead of 16, that's a change you need to make. You're probably all familiar with the 120-day time clock limit on making decisions from the time that an application is deemed complete to any final appeal of your decisions. For affordable housing applications, it's a 100-day limit instead of 120.
But that's also gonna be done at a staff level.
That will
now.
be done, right,
So the steps would
Yeah.
be a lot easier to get 100
right.
days, get it
Again,
done in 100 days.
in my time in Staten, we never even came close to having to worry about the 120-day time limit, or even a 100-day time limit.
One time we've seen it come up is if there's a request for a continuance, for example, or additional information, and most of the time it's coming from the applicant wants additional time to respond. So they'll ask for 2 weeks. Well, we can't meet in 2 weeks. I'm on vacation. Can we come back in 4 weeks? Well, if we're gonna expose this at 4 weeks and we want you to sign an agreement says we're extending beyond the 120 days or whatever. And so that's the only time I've seen it is when the applicant requests more time and we're not gonna be able to fulfill that requirement. So we address it then, but that's happened once in my 13 years.
All right, so those are the statutory requirements. The rest of what I'm talking about here are the other amendments, the suggested amendments, recommended amendments. There was language in your code that I raised my eyebrows at regarding granting an extension for an approval that seemed to imply that if someone's approval was about to expire, they'd come before you and you had the authority to put new requirements on the approval if your code had changed. And what I've suggested is to say, if the code has changed, you don't get an extension.
So,
Or
it's-
if the, that's a criteria for granting the approval, not giving you the discretion whether to do that or not.
Yeah,
Okay,
we've
so-
run into that actually. Like, which code do we apply?
yeah, I go get a building permit to build the ADU I've got. It's good for 12 months. Data. But I can get, administratively, I can get another 12-month extension.
Building permit, yeah.
for a building permit.
Right, but we're not talking about a building permit, we're talking about a site development review permit.
Site development, okay.
And they're good for 2 years.
Well, we just approved one for 5 years, basically.
Okay. So 7 years later, they come in and go, or, you know, or 4 years and 10 months later, they come in and say, no, I'm not gonna get started yet. The way your code currently reads, if your code had changed, it's at your discretion whether to apply the new standard. That was my concern.
Oh, the city's discretion.
Yes,
But, and what you're saying is no, the new standard's going to be applied.
right.
Okay.
The granddaddy of these in Philomath was the expansion of the manufactured home park on North 19th Street, Forest Meadows. When that got approved, it was a phase 1, phase 2 approval 25 years ago. They built phase 1, they never built phase 2, but they came back 20 years later and said, we're ready to build phase 2 now. And they wanted all of the original language, all the original provisions in there. We didn't have anything in our code that said when those approvals expired. And so they wanted to go back to all of their original approval, and the planner at the time said, no, there's new code. We'll grant the extension, but you gotta comply with all this new stuff. So exactly this game, right? It became very discretionary. Well, which provisions are we gonna require? Which aren't we gonna provide, you know? And so very squishy. This is much more clear and objective, which is what we want.
I've suggested a new introductory paragraph to your whole list of definitions that essentially says, you know, anything that's not defined below has its normal dictionary meaning, and you know, masculine includes feminine, and plural includes singular, and singular includes plural, and blah, 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 you know, just sort of standard boilerplate introductory language.
For that,
Yeah.
you really need some language like that.
One thing I saw is your code for a type 2 administrative application. There was no minimum amount of time for granting approval. It said a notice needed to go out to the neighbors in advance, but it didn't say that the planner couldn't make the decision the next day after sending the notice out. So I've suggested.
Which has been our practice. We wait till we.
Right, or.
Oh, it made it sound like your practice was doing it the next day. The way it turns out.
The first was the way that we did it.
Anyway, I've suggested 2-week waiting period. This next section, 215.050.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go back to the previous. Was some stuff about the final plat for partitions and subdivisions. It all just duplicated stuff that the county does when the plat comes in. And is all the county surveyor's business, not really the city's. So again, you'll when you look at the details, you'll see what that's all about. Okay, next slide. Additional standards, this was something that Chris and Laura had talked about. Some additional standards promote architectural design consistency within a planned unit development as opposed to a standard lot development. And you know, it's without saying that you shall have this architectural style, or just saying you need to have consistency within this development. You need to have a set of CCNRs and maybe a homeowners association to enforce them, to say things need to have a basic level of consistency throughout the neighborhood. A requirement that to establish a homeowners association in a planned unit development, because somebody needs to be taking care of the common open space or common facilities. And that's what it's worded. If there's commonly owned open space or facilities, then there shall be a homeowners association and they're responsible for their ownership and maintenance.
Not gonna get by with the joint access maintenance agreement.
Right. Not in a planned unit development. The section on annexations, there were two criteria that really were submission requirements. So it should have been in the checklist of, is this application complete, as opposed to a criterion for approval. So I suggested moving them. Again, for annexations, anytime that you annex land into the city, you have to change the zoning map because it's not zoned today. Anytime you change the zoning map, you need to notify the state 35 days prior to the first hearing. So just adding that into the procedural stuff for annexations. At the end, when an annexation is finalized, there's 6 or 8 different statutory requirements for who the city needs to notify. So all of those have been, I've suggested, be incorporated into the code. Some suggested architectural standards for multifamily housing, for things like window trim and eave overhangs and siding and articulation of walls and things like that, are suggested. A whole new section to address cottage cluster housing. You had it listed in your table of uses. But so again, some suggested design standards, et cetera, on cottage cluster.
Somebody explain what the heck a cottage cluster house is?
Cottage cluster house, and the definition is added as well, I believe. Maybe you had that in there. Cottage cluster is on one hand a new, but on the other hand, I know that
They've been around.
They've been around
since the
for-
30s and 40s.
Right. Relatively small homes that are grouped together around a courtyard, single-family homes grouped together around a courtyard on a single parcel of land.
And the vehicles are excluded from the center area.
Yeah, it's a big courtyard. So parking would be around the outside. And it's promoted as a more affordable because they're not 2,400 square foot homes, they're 1,200 square foot homes. Form of development.
We had one come through a while back.
A year or two ago.
We zoned it R3 in order to get it because our current code didn't allow for
Right,
cottage clusters in the R2.
right.
And so we zoned it R3 and then put provisions to allow for this
Is that
cottage
project
cluster to
moving
make up. Yeah.
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 There's reached out to ask questions
Off of
recently.
15th Street, South 15th. He had a duplex on another adjacent lot that he needed to build first. Now that that's built, he's turning his attention back down to his
Some kind of funky lot.
cottage cluster property.
The guy just took a big lot. Wants to build a bunch of ADU tiny homes on it.
All right, well, I know that we provided you a lot of the code last month to kind of review in lieu of the meeting. And
We did.
Mhm.
Yeah, but half.
Prior to the meeting, prior to the meeting that was canceled last month.
Oh.
So some of that came out for you to review ahead of time. Dan's work came out earlier last week and midway through last week. I don't have a ton of time tonight just because of the hour, and I do want to get to Laura's presentation and going forward and talking timeline and stuff. So if there's burning questions for Dan right now, anything we talked about tonight, I think it's good. But otherwise, feel free to direct questions directly to Laura or to myself on things that you read through there. Questions, concerns, whatever, we'll relay those on to Dan, get kind of overall feedback and kind of come back. But Dan's work going forward is going to be working with Laura and myself, identifying other portions that we might be able to fit under this DLCD grant of housing audit. Although he's done the vast majority, we think there may be other sections of the residential that he could look at as part of his audit. We want to get the most bang for our buck, use as much of that DLCD money as we can, and use Dan's expertise as much as we can. So there may be additional provisions in the residential code that we're still looking at. The parking and examples, new provision with the parking that we've looked at. We haven't looked at that as part of this code revision, but Dan's looking at that now, and he'll be providing some additional language there to fix. Because our residential parking standards are 3 pages long, and for the most part, they're kind of moot, unless they're not, right? And so we're digging into that. So that, Dan will still be working with us, still helping through. So if you do see that stuff, again, forward on Lord, I will kick it on to him. But I don't want to take the opportunity. Is there burning questions tonight for Dan?
I have a burning question.
Do that, yep.
Dan, we need like a performance spec for smoke, dust, noise, light, coming out of a certain residential, commercial, industrial, whatever. How do we include that in our spec? We don't really have, there's some parts that kind of address some of that for commercial, I think, but we had a meeting and a discussion, and my thought was like, well, if we just had a general spec that only so many dB and, dark sky compliant and dust and noise, and it's all got to be controlled within certain limitations, and then we just can point to that section from all our different residential, commercial, industrial.
So are you talking about long-term impacts or during construction?
Long-term.
Long-term, yeah, no, those can all be written into the code for to have those types of performance standards, one on dust control, one on noise, outdoor lighting.
I want to hijack the conversation. There's a house down in Monroe, and I don't know if it's seasonal or what, but you drive anywhere to Monroe and you can see these floodlights up in the sky moving around like the motion lights, searchlights.
Yeah.
And you follow them back and it's just house that's like decorated for Christmas. And it was like really like 4 huge cannon lights shooting up in the sky, and there's nothing in our code that would disallow that.
Well, it's not pointing at traffic or a neighbor, then we can talk about it, but I'm more concerned about.
We're silent on it.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we need the minimum of
As
light.
part of this work, I was really looking at procedural stuff and the residential standard.
It sounds like
so-
Chris wants to throw some more stuff.
Yeah, but outdoor lighting, dust is a little hard to
Yeah.
define,
Yeah.
measurable,
Smoke, air
or
particulate.
odor is
Yeah.
really hard to
Odor.
define.
Yeah.
Some of that wraps into our nuisance section of our
Right.
code as well, as opposed to the development code. It's in our nuisance still, like.
Yeah.
You
You
got
gotta have
loud
some
noises.
teeth for a compliance branch to point at and be like, you're not compliant with code. And it can't just be like, oh, your house stinks, do something about it,
Well, we can, that is in the nuisance section of the
Right.
code.
Well,
Odor itself is, but I think the point would be maybe within the residential code, is there some general provisions
Yep,
around design and things that we could look at to help prevent that,
I
and
know.
we can look more generally. Okay. Any other burning questions for Dan?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
yeah, thanks for
you're very welcome.
Take your time.
My pleasure.
All right, I'm gonna try to find Laura's. Here, and Dan, I know you gotta drive too.
Right.
You need to.
Okay. So I realize the hour and I can talk fast, so I will work through this. But mostly, I want to take the opportunity. There are 2 code amendment processes that are working at the same time. I think initially we thought that Dan would be able to take the housing code amendments through the process in one step, and then I would follow with commercial and industrial. But we're looking at the code and how some of the procedure items are interrelate and the definitions interrelate. It makes sense just to do a complete code amendment process together. So we're going to take on a big chunk.
Danger.
Danger, yeah.
Sarah is standing up in the back.
Are you feeling worried? So know that there are different scopes of work, but Dan and I are working together to talk about some of the issues. We are reviewing each other's work, bouncing ideas off one another, so it's going to be a really cohesive process. You have already provided us some great stepping stones to work on, some language work that's already been done. As Dan had mentioned, that is our first step. We look at existing code, what language has been suggested, what ideas, concerns that have been raised previously. And that work informs some of these code amendment process, in addition to the legislative change. So the two portions of the code that I have just reviewed initially are defined as Division 1 and Division 4. Division 1 is just essentially the outline of how to use a development code. You don't necessarily have to follow along, but once you get those slides up there, yeah, that's okay. It's in your packet if you wanted to, but essentially looked at existing Division 1, and how you might improve it. So looked at it as a wholesale, and just found some areas where it was lacking. It could be clearer. There was maybe old language in there. Really went through there to do adjustments. So expanded some of the authority, compliance language, ties this section of the code into the municipal code as a whole. New rules for construction and interpretation. So the interpretation of the code is pretty broad currently. Maybe a little bit unclear about who makes that interpretation, the steps involved. So this works to clarify those. And then some of the functions of the code. Right now, it's not clear if we need to round up. Example, if a parking space was required and it's, a half a space, does it go up or down? Most codes are really clear about when rounding takes place. If there's a code conflict, which one prevails? Usually it's the one that's more rigid or more restrictive. Right now, some of those items that are more or less commonplace in codes are not identified. Or could be strengthened in our code that we work with here. Definitions, adding on to those, Dan's working a lot with the housing, but as we're going through the code, there's common terms that are used, just making sure that those are defined. And expanding some of the enforcement options. Let's skip to slide 5. So in Division 4, Division 4 of the zoning code essentially lays out our land use review procedures. So this section of the code may be moved up to what's now called Division 2, just so that the flow of the code follows. You have your administration section, you have your land use procedures, you get into zoning by zone standards, design standards, and all the other areas. So, but it is currently called Division 4, and it lays out every application review process we have. It lays out noticing requirement, who makes the final decisions, the decision timelines that we follow. And it also includes the sections of the application types. So land divisions, conditional use permits, plan developments, annexation, you name it. So it goes through there. So currently, if you looked at our code and you were thinking about doing a land division, you'd go to the land division section and it would have a little bit of procedure, how the application's processed, and then it would point you over to an application type. And the application type would fill in some other pieces of information about when noticing is. So the difference will be is that the land use process will be a table that's included that says this is your application type. So site design review, land division, conditional use. You'll follow it over, it'll tell you what type of decision it is, which just means who's making the decision. And then what code section applies in terms of review criteria and what you need to submit. So hopefully to put all that into a table, and then that table will help you navigate around that section. And we also won't have to repeat under each application type on, what your requirements are for processing a use decision. So a little bit of restructuring just to make that flow a little bit and have folks that aren't used to reading development codes be able to kind of navigate around easily on their own. So the review types, there is a lot more reviews that will be moving to a staff or just a permit type.
Yeah, it's sounding like after we're done with this code review, we're not gonna have much to do anymore.
We'll have a lot more legislative changes, policy guidance and things like that that will rely on you, but a lot of those will review. So, I might enter into a zone review, which is essentially like a building permit review that we do now, but outline what that means. Some of the middle housing are going to be kind of an over-counter permit where you're checking the development code and not necessarily going through a process. So zoning review, that first one, it kind of includes everything that's moving to that clear and objective standard that staff can use a checklist and go through. And then adds more information about the other things that we're more to seeing. So the effect that we hope we have is that the code's easier to use by staff, the applicants can navigate it better, that the public has clearer expectations about what types of applications they're going to receive notice for, how they can participate in the process. And then for the Planning Commission, clarifying your role for these higher level decisions and the ones that we still use discretion for, such as conditional uses, and some of those zone map amendments that come to the Planning Commission for recommendations. So included in the application packet is a timeline, color-coded, try to make it make sense to a non-planner. Hopefully we did okay. But what this is it spells out our tentative dates that we're aiming for moving these map code amendments forward. Some of these are required grant deadlines of when we're reporting on the housing code amendments. Some of them are just required noticing to take the process through a public hearing process. The ones I really wanted to bring your attention to are the ones in kind of a light yellow, and that's on the next slide, is that we're anticipating in January that we would love for the Planning Commission to get involved in some public outreach. When thinking through public engagement and how best to talk and when people are going to be interested, it's probably going to be grouped in these three types. So folks that are living in residential zones will want to know about, what's required at the state level, what's changing. So we're hoping to bring in and announce just a focus group to talk about some of the changes to the residential zone housing, essentially. Hoping to have another public engagement event just around commercial and mixed use zone changes. Those aren't before you today, but in advance of that meeting, we're going to have a better idea about some of the code amendments that are in place there that you've already worked through. And we hope to direct market this open house or engagement process to landowners who either work or have property in commercial and mixed use zones so that they know what to expect here. And the same with employment and industrial. Because each of these groups are probably going to have different interest and that the codes affect them differently, we thought that breaking them up in these three different functions would hopefully allow the conversation to really resonate with them, and then for folks to actually be a part of the process that they're most interested in. So in future efforts, we'll reach out and talk more about, the venue, how to hold that, how we can get you to be engaged, and what, go ahead and ask a question.
What's an open house? Is it just here at City Hall?
I think those are the items that we'd like your feedback on. So do we go to an event that's occurring and have maybe a booth set up where people are able to stop in, and then we announce that planning commissioners are going to be there? We invite them to any hat.
I've talked about this before, and we landed on summer outreach at the market right here. But now our timeline is 6 months off.
No.
So I don't know what that looks like. What kind of events, community events are happening in January? Stuff at the school?
Yeah, basketball games, probably be your best one. You get a home girls and boys basketball game. You get 3/4 of the town.
What do we
You don't
do?
have
Set
to-
up a booth in the hallway in the high school?
Yeah,
or-
talk to school ahead of time, get
Okay.
out there. I mean, with all of this, we'll have information on the website, we'll be doing social media outreach, so we'll have a place to send people or a place for people to land to get more information. Of course, with contact information for follow-up questions and things, but, we've talked about canvassing a couple of neighborhoods, going to be heavily impacted, College Street, 12th Street, right? I think that's a great place for the Planning Commission to maybe be able to step up and take on some time to help canvass areas and not only let them know the changes, but point to a future meeting that would be good for them to attend to get some information. We've talked outside of just these three areas, maybe we're doing some neighborhood meetings, so maybe we canvass that area and just before the meeting about mixed use commercial, maybe we try to hold a neighborhood meeting with the folks on College Street to just talk specifically about those changes from mixed use to, I think it's going to R2, medium density residential for a lot of them. What does that look like? Same thing with up on North 12th Street. I think the current zoning is R3. Most of that, the projection was to go to R2. What does that mean for folks, right? So I do think, and tonight's probably not the best night and we've got some time. I want to say that the first thing I did when Laura gave the draft version of this to me, I was like, this is way too long. We got to move everything up, squish it all up, you know? But the more you get looking at it, do we really want to be out canvassing in November and trying to get people to come to meetings in December and give engagement?
We could go out on Halloween.
Yeah. Go door to door.
Actually, have you heard about the zone change in your neighborhood?
So the more I got looking at, not just with the holiday season, but just the time, and Laura's done a great job with what we've worked at so far. We're, not her only client. She's got a workload and we've only got so much hours and so many dollars we can put there. And so we want to make sure we give time to go through it meticulously and get it right. So I think between the time needed for the planner to really go through and do it right, and then preparing the public for that engagement, I'm not opposed to maybe trying to do some neighborhood meetings ahead of these January and February dates if we wanted to try to do something smaller to that scale. But really, I think it does give opportunity for the planning commission to help identify areas where you want to do some public engagements on or each. I mean, it really is one of your primary responsibilities, especially as some of these other responsibilities are being taken away from you, is that being a source for that public engagement related to land use and zoning and allowed uses for properties. You're kind of the voice of the people and supposed to be that citizen engagement committee, that engages with folks. So outside of putting up a sign and inviting people to come here to talk to you, I would love at like a future meeting to maybe have just brainstorm a little bit and think ahead of time and then come together and talk about what is the best way that we can engage with some folks, where are people gonna be? And again,
Is that this late August meeting? That's when we're gonna talk about it, or is this actually public engagement? Because there's only a couple weeks left in the month.
yeah.
No. I guess what I first saw for that one was, getting information up on a webpage to say coming soon, having a landing page where folks know where to go to get updates.
We're gonna be taking public feedback at that point, or is it just getting information out there?
I think it's getting out there. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, I don't know how much to the public, you probably have a better sense than I do, is change coming? I mean, some folks know, they call me a lot and get updates on where we're at in the code amendment process, but others might not know that work is underway and.
Some of them know and don't understand. Some of them know and don't care, but I think probably the most of them don't know.
Don't know, yeah.
But would care.
Maybe.
Yeah.
That's what we gotta figure out, I think.
Yeah. And again, I think we're further along in the residential, right? So there's nothing says nothing goes out until everything goes out. Some of the residential stuff we can float out, as we've done before. The zoning map, we want to be a little careful on because we've got zones on the zoning map that we don't have definitions for. We've talked about a regional commercial, but I'm a little reluctant to put on a map that shows regional commercial on it when we don't have regional commercial, language in our draft amendments yet. So
Yeah, to that point, like, we are gonna have our heads wrapped around these code changes and understand what's going on to put them in layman's terms before we do any engagement.
Right. And there's opportunity to, put some posters together, do some online stuff, put some brochures together. I love the idea of putting some graphic stuff together. And on that note, some exciting news. We're actually, if you haven't heard, the city of Philomath was selected as one of only 2 cities this year to participate in the University of Oregon Sustainable Cities program.
Hey.
So we're partnering with University of Oregon and Oregon State University on some projects. We've identified a number of projects where we're going to have students and faculty come and help the city on some of these initiatives. And one of the initiatives that we settled on is this public engagement process. And so we're going to, at some date in the near future, in October, probably at the earliest, because they start school late, we'll have either faculty and or students probably come to do some engagement. We've already kind of talked through some of the major changes that we're looking at zoning, like College Street, 12th Street, the two kind of identified. The commercial property to less extent, just because there's fewer owners out there, there's a small handful that'll impact, but the change itself will be great. But the students, where they have the specialty and the expertise, is they're actually gonna look at, for example, a lot that's on College Street that's currently zoned commercial, and maybe the house sits a little obscured to one side. They're gonna look at that and they're gonna develop out and say, okay, when the zone change goes from commercial, office, residential, mixed use to R2, here's some potential future uses of your property. You could add an ADU now, which right now in the commercial they can't do. So they'll have a 3D rendering of what an ADU could look like in that yard. This is what you could do if you wanted to turn your home into a duplex, right? You could add on to it. You could do a separate unit. You could do depending on the lot, you could do a cottage cluster, right? You could tear down the existing home and put 5 small homes in there, keep the existing home and add 3 more small homes, have a cottage cluster. So they're gonna do the audio, the visual stuff, not audio, they're gonna do the visual stuff, right? To provide the diagrams that then can be converted into pamphlets, informational stuff online that we can weaponize you guys with, so that you can go out and as you're presenting, talking, you've got some illustrations that are done by these students that'll kind of show exactly what that means to them, right? Because we say, oh, the setbacks change, but people like setbacks, you're talking a language that they don't use every day.
Right.
But when you can show them an image, says, well, this is what you're restricted to now, but this is what you could do. Here's 4 options. It just gets the wheels turning and maybe we'll explain things in a better way. So I'm excited about the partnership. We're definitely looking College, 12th Street. 12th Street mostly is R3. What does it move to R2 with the new R2 language? What does that mean? So they're gonna do some examples for us. So I think it's really exciting, be a cool little, depending on the groups, I mean, there'll be multiple groups within each class that'll be given these assignments. Depending on the group, some of them may feel more comfortable like coming to a neighborhood meeting and helping present their ideas, maybe not the kickoff pitch, but hey, we've got some students that are gonna talk to you about these different versions of things you can do on your property. And we may be able to turn over to them and let them run the slideshow for a while, right? And go through some stuff. So anyway, it'll be a cool partnership. So we'll have some help and engagement in preparing deliverables and materials that I'm excited about. So again, a few unknowns still, things we're still kind of working through, but we definitely want to give you the tools that you need to help you feel like you're engaging with the public and getting the information across and be able to answer questions as they're coming in. And I do think, as much as we are all passionate about this, you're still gonna have 60% of the population that really doesn't care until they're ready to build their house, fence up, do their expansion, and they're gonna be like, planning commission, public hearing, yeah, blah, 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 right? So be passionate about it, get the information out there, but don't be offended when people are like, we're not overflowing here, because we end up with 10 people who are interested, but.
I think just making the effort and saying we're here as a resource is like, whether or not they give any 2 cents about what we have to say, is we're like, oh, we're here, we're the resource. If you have questions, if you want to know about this stuff, rather than, oh, I have no idea what you guys do or who you are, or, And I think it's also good to do January rather than November because of election season and all holidays and all of that. So I think we can find enough indoor venues and meetings that we could.
Hopefully it's a slow point in people's lives where they have some extra time and after the holidays.
If you see specifics on there, or if you think of a specific event or something it'd be cool to be at, please kick those to us, right? Like, to me, I think this can be expanded and we can get very detailed, like specific dates that we're gonna be, where we're gonna be. And I don't think that we wanna wait until January to make that list. I think the sooner we start developing out that list, so we have time to tweak it and hone in on it, the better. So please do take the colored version we handed out tonight, the online version, and add events, add ideas, put your thoughts on there. I like the canvassing idea just because we've done that with the park board and it was very successful, and talking to folks about a park as opposed to a mailing or postcard they get in the mail. Having somebody show up at your door at 11 o'clock on a Saturday morning and talked about parks was very effective, got really good feedback from folks. So
I'll just say Mary's River Grange would definitely welcome a presentation, and I'm a member there, so I'm happy to take the lead on that one.
Anything else in the-
No, I'll just wrap up. So next up, so where do we go from here? So Dan and I have been essentially working on two different drafts. We're going to combine those so that we have one working draft. There's going to be some overlaps or areas where we have to reconcile some work. And so we will do that next. So next time we come before you, we'll have some of that work already performed. And I'm going to carry on and get into the specifics for some of the commercial and industrial portions of those and start presenting some draft language there.
Where are we at on this process?
Yeah, I'm
Prepare
confused.
consolidation draft, is that where we're at?
Oh, so on next steps?
4?
Yeah, so next steps right now, so what we're gonna do from this point moving forward is combine some of our working drafts. So Dan has suggested some language, made some edits on Division 1, for example. And I have some edits on a different document that's also Division 1. Those need to be combined so that,
Yeah, then the date is what's confusing me.
oh, okay.
June
Oh,
2025.
for the timeline of these?
Those
Says
are
right there.
our inputs. They're incorporating our inputs prior to that date.
Prior to June 2025?
Yeah, those
That
are
was the
ones
last
that
time we
planning
provided
commission-
any update, any drafts.
Yeah, okay, so then where are we at?
Yeah, I'm a
We're
little,
still
I'm a
in
little
combining?
confused right now
We're
with your,
No,
with
the
your, with
June
your step.
2025 was the,
I'm confused with this document.
Oh, but this, okay, I was gonna say, I don't think we did that.
Because, you know, that's okay, because I see that this is our working session, work session tonight. Housing code audit and draft code concepts. When are we going to see the draft code with the changes?
So those should be included in the packet that went out. Is that-
Yeah, that's part of
no,
the
I don't know
digital.
who did hard copy, but it's in the, if you go to the city's website
The packet?
for the agenda for tonight, it's one of the links there, to the 200 and something odd pages of the code.
And while you're
Okay,
at
okay,
that, look at the one for June. The meeting that half us missed.
then the next question is, when do we provide feedback to those documents in this process? I don't see a do loop. I see a linear process that does not give the assumption that I'm seeing in this process is the input that's been provided up through June of '25 is complete in and of itself. That there are no other review of the overall document or even of those to see what was incorporated and what wasn't incorporated. When are we going to get an opportunity? And I would argue we probably need at least a week, if not more, in whatever document. Let's say we get the residential, just the residential section. That's it. That's all we get. For us to be able to review it and then come back together, and obviously we got to do it in a public forum, to be able to express what comments we do have as a commission, review those comments, and if it's appropriate to direct staff to incorporate those comments or to make changes. Where is that in this process? I don't see it. I see it that we're going to get on,
Do we have a September planning commission meeting?
We will likely have a September planning commission. meeting.
Because I don't see that
Yeah.
on here,
Yeah.
and so I guess, I was thinking the same thing as Tim, like, do we need to add another meeting so we publicly advertise it and we all come in and we actually have had time to review everything and then we can actually have conversations about it. So whether it's at an official planning commission meeting or an additional mid-month.
They've all got to be official, public.
Yeah, right, but I mean, like, on our typical date.
Yeah.
Applications for next month, didn't we?
Currently.
Yeah,
No.
so.
So,
September-
and that's gonna take minimum 2 meetings, one for residential, another one for the rest.
Because I see the October one is for commercial and industrial, and so
Yeah.
then, but then it doesn't have anything in for the November meeting.
Okay, let's go back to the one on October 2nd. So I understand this, so you can understand the schedule. You show on Monday, October the 12th, PC staff report agenda packet due. Is that when we're going to see it?
So I think we should backtrack a little bit. So this timeline is a draft of where we anticipate. Some of these are hard deadlines, like the grant ones that are in blue, some of the dark orange, the green ones. So there are some hard deadlines built in here.
Okay,
Because for planning, we have to kind of work backwards. So if we need our grant project due, then we start back here in July of 2027, and then we work back to say, when do we need to notify the state? When do we need to have planning commission hearings to take place? So moving still backward yet, and trying to get this done by July 2027. I do have some work sessions, I can speak right, some work sessions scheduled. Those are in kind of a light green. So October 19th, it would be presenting on draft commercial industrial code. December 21st, a map amendment concepts. So those are already created, but there might be some changes or additions. There's some planning commission meetings that we would have or could have if additional time is needed. For example, the November or September for additional work sessions. It's kind of that balance of if we need to move the project forward to meet the grant deadline.
Well, I think
Some of these work
we
sessions.
definitely should. We should definitely be thinking about it, because a night like tonight, where we have a, quasi judicial thing to deal with, we're not gonna get much done in the code.
No.
So we should definitely, anytime there's something like we have to deal with tonight, we should schedule another meeting a week or two after that for just code.
So let's plan for a review of the residential code for the first meeting in September. So that code's posted online. If you want a hard copy version, let me know. I'll print one off for you in color so you can see the black versus the red, but otherwise you can download it online in PDF and highlight changes there. So you've got a month, right? So review residential code that's on the website right now.
September 21st.
And we'll do that September 21st. And then if we need another meeting in early October, because otherwise we're going to be moving to see the first draft of the commercial industrial, you'll see that October 12th.
Well, and that was my question. Is that when we're going to see that draft based
That's when
on
you'll
this
see the draft.
schedule?
Yep.
So we would see the draft a week before we have the planning commission work session. So we would have had a week to review that draft.
And then.
I myself am a little, I don't know where I missed the notification that these other documents were there.
I received an email from
Late.
city staff from
Okay.
that attachment to it and said, this is the draft code. And I opened up the PDF and it was like, whoa, there's all these colors. I don't know what's going on.
But the other thing too is well, let me finish with this. I'm gonna go back and check that, and that's probably my mistake, but let me follow up in a second on that. But is that what this schedule is telling us, is that it's anticipating that on the 12th of October, the draft commercial and industrial code will be available for planning commission review? Is that what this schedule is telling us?
I think where the communication is here is that we don't have public hearings scheduled until March of 2027. So,
Well, we have a work session, which is a public meeting.
yes, so while
I'm talking about in preparation for October 19th to review the draft commercial and industrial code, are we anticipating receiving those documents for our review on Monday, October the 12th? That's what I'm trying to read the schedule.
To answer your question, there are going to be deadlines that are defined where you'll get information in advance of a work session. Yes. And
Is
then
this an example of one?
what is expected from that point is that you'll have an overview, similar to what Dan provided here, where we have a code amendment. We're presenting some of the key things that you're going to see in that code. We're going to ask questions, present information, and then you'll have a chance to digest that before the next work session. And we'll keep building on these pieces. We won't be making any final decisions until kind of the March public hearing portion.
I understand that part. I think, I don't know if I'm using just the wrong language.
Yeah,
Can I
the work
direct-
sessions
Yes,
are,
One point I think Tim is trying to make is that 1 week between seeing the code and the meeting where we discuss or deliberate or even vote on the code, not enough time.
so
We
these,
need that document in hand,
Yeah, that's not the
probably
expect-
2 weeks.
Yeah, that's not the expectation. The expectation is you'll get it a week at a time. A week later, staff is going to present the code like Dan did tonight and walk through all of the changes, not necessarily to get your feedback and your input, but to present it. A month later, we'll have another meeting where we're gonna see that feedback. As we said tonight, if there's questions or comments you have about Dan's stuff tonight, let us know. Between that, we don't need to wait till the next meeting a month from now. Let me know tomorrow, let me know Friday, right? So get us your individual feedback, and then the next time we look at the residential, we'll say, here's the comments and the feedback that we received. What else do we need to talk about? Because at the end of the day, we're still gonna have to do this public engagement piece.
That just
And
sounds
there's gonna
like
be additional
extra steps we don't need. I'm speaking for me. Everybody should speak up for yourself, but if you send me the document, email me a PDF, send me a link, I can start the clock on me, give me 2 weeks from that day to do my review. I'll come with markups and comments, and we can have that discussion in person. I don't need the presentation. Like, I can digest the material myself, and we can use our time to just review and make our changes. Like, our work sessions can actually be work sessions and not, that's just my take. It seems like too many steps, and it's,
Well,
we could,
let me maybe correct something as far as
yeah.
position and responsibility. So we got in a bad habit with Pat Deppa of using work sessions to write code together. And that is not the role and responsibility of you as a planning commissioner. Planning commission's job is to review the code that's been written and presented, provide feedback, and give that feedback to staff to go back and adjust, rewrite, find the code and bring it back. But we spent a lot of hours and a lot of work sessions writing code with a committee of 5 or 6, 7 people. That was enormous amount of time, and probably not the best and most effective way to do it, but it's a bad habit we got into and continued through for far too long. So I want to make sure we're setting expectations. There is no expectation that you as a planning commissioner are going to be writing development code, reading sections you don't like and rewriting that and bringing that to a meeting to review with everybody.
100% agree.
So here's the provisions for the code. Again, I think Dan did a great example tonight. Here's the provisions, here's the statutes, here's what we're touching on. But you'll notice Dan didn't provide you lengthy review of all the language. That's still your purview to review, right? Like, you have all of the report, you have the full audit, you have the full recommended language that is in the link. And again, we just didn't print it because it was 230 pages, and I prefer to search on the computer rather than hard copy. But we can provide either way. We want to give you as much time as possible. I agree with Laura. I think the preview is helpful because it points you the direction. A complaint we've got in the past is, man, you gave me 200 pages and we gave me direction what to look at. Everything's just out there. So we want to dial that in a little bit and be like, here's the major things, here's the minor things, and now you've still got a month plus to make comments, give us your feedback, and we're still going to bring that through either during and or before that open house that we're talking with everybody, because the open house is going to come and we're going to get more comments, right? So we don't want to pretend that once we hear from you, that's the code. It's still going to morph and tweak a little bit, right? And so we do have time when we get to that start of the year, during that public review process and during those comments, that you're going to see that final text and you're going to have that time to make those kind of final tweaks and adjustments and recommendations.
Okay, I'm on board. I see your vision. So I still would like to see in this schedule dates, even if they're draft dates, when that code will be ready and provided to us. And then like what day draft is fine. You guys intend to present highlights to us. And then what I'm hearing you say, Chris, is that anytime after I receive that code and I start my review, I can begin to send you my comments and you can incorporate them in the presentation or the work group workshop, whatever we're calling them. And we can discuss those kind of one-off as they go. So that we're not sitting in meetings writing code and typing out language and missing a lot of things.
Yeah.
Is that
So
sound reasonable?
we
Is
can
that-
look at that, do that. I think we do that in some of these areas, and maybe we can improve it or make it more clear with the others. Definitely the September meeting, we don't have it identified in here. I think we should just say that'll be the time to review your comments on residential.
Okay.
So if you are reviewing those and you have those ahead of time, send it to us, that's great. We'll get them out to everybody ahead of time. If you want to bring them with you to the meeting, that's fine too, but I think we can spend September going through the residential code audit and/or the residential code provisions that maybe weren't covered in the audit, like the parking provisions. And more than likely, I'm going to get a draft from Dan about the parking provision stuff between now and our September meeting. And I'll kick that out to you as a draft version. It might be a week ahead of time, but I'll kick it out to you and then we'll go through that together as well.
That's great to have it ahead of time.
So I think getting it to you ahead of time, reviewing it in the meeting, and then giving you plenty of time to gather feedback, knowing there's still going to be engagement down the road for that final impact. But I don't want you to feel, again, I'm not trying to take anything away from you. I just don't want you to feel overwhelmed like, oh, we've got to write development code, because that's, I mean, we hire great people to write development code,
Yeah.
incorporate code, and then it's a review, right? And where this doesn't work, where it could work, explaining it better so we can defend it, right? And,
That's what I'm interested in, is
Yeah.
for having engaging with the community, that we know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And know how to
And
explain.
I feel, I mean, to maybe put my, I'll just say it. I feel like I'm more on the side of the table with you guys now than on the staff level, because I got professional planner. I'm not a professional planner. I've been doing it for 13 years, but that's not my training. I mean, I've been doing the planning with the city, but I've always had a professional planner there with my side. Short of the last few years, we were trying to train planners that had some planning background, but trying to get them to Oregon land use and whatnot. So I feel like I'm leaning on Dan and the Laura to be like, okay, you explain this, right? So I can defend it, right? Because I'm gonna have to re-explain it to somebody else. So I'm right with you guys. Some of the land use stuff is confusing. The language has got to be specific. We've got to follow state statute. Laura will tell you, we'll read the thing, same thing at code. And I'm like, well, this is what it means. She's like, well, no, look at this. I'm like, oh, God, you're right. I've been reading that wrong for,
Yeah.
however
No,
long.
this is great. Laura, this is great. Amending and writing the code so that it's easy for applicants and staff to interact, because that's where this whole thing is going with, ORS. And yeah, I mean, we don't need to write the law of the land. We just need to what's gonna, right?
The majority of our code is based off the model code from like the 1980s.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's 80% at least of our code is like
80s and
model
90s.
code from the 80s.
Yeah.
And it needs to be updated. And sometimes we update a little bit chunks here and there. This is an overhaul, right? It's not an update. This is an overhaul. We're taking large portions, putting it in today's language, making sure the definitions are correct. So it's no small task that staff's undergoing right here. And we definitely want the feedback as we're going to make sure that it is making sense. So it's an important role. And I would say the only thing maybe more important than your revision of this is making sure that you're reaching out to the public and make sure that they're engaged as much as they want to be and can be on, they're seeing the revisions as well and make sure it's making sense with them. I think those equally are important as your role as a planning commissioner. So we want to give you those opportunities to be reaching out to folks.
Yeah.
I think the only other thing I would add to this timeline is that we know this is a big package of amendments. So on the back page of the timeline, you'll see we have Planning Commission hearing 1 and 2. We plan to break this up into 2 meetings and essentially continue the hearing. So you'll be getting information in advance of 1. You'll have some time to read the staff report, consider it, continue it. We can present, on the other topic. So we don't expect this to be a even quick process at the end. You'll have a lot of time in between that March and April hearing, well in advance before city council looks at it too. But we can certainly build in some additional work sessions, some regular scheduled meetings that we don't identify here, so that those are a little bit more transparent.
Yeah, we need to meet twice in September, or once in September and once in early October, so I'd rather start light and then you tell us to add meetings than to add a bunch of meetings on there and you guys be like, holy crap. What did we get into?
Well, we don't have anything in September.
Yeah.
Well, as far as, right, I think it's,
And then in October, we're into commercial industrial.
right.
So I think we should have something on the calendar.
Our
for
September, typical regular September scheduled meeting.
Which doesn't leave a lot of room in the second half of the month if we need another meeting. Not saying that we will, but if we do,
Yeah, in the past we've done like 3rd and 1st, so you'd be like the first week of October, which would be in front of the commercial industrial stuff.
it would be a week before that, wouldn't it?
What's the date now? I think the October meeting date
Was
is,
the 19th?
yeah. So 2 weeks in front of it.
So what you guys need is for us to go home and over the next 2 weeks, review residential and get you comments.
Yeah, and I would start with the audit, right? So go through that if you haven't gone through what was in the packet tonight. Go through the audit, look at Dan's comments, and then I would put that on the side, and then I would pull up on the screen or beside you the code and go through that. And you'll see anytime there's that track changes, it should be reflective of something that he's got in the audit somewhere. And you'll see the proposed language in the code, right? And make your notes or whatever that is, and then get us that feedback. I'd say bring it to the next meeting, but obviously the sooner you get it to us, the sooner we can,
Yeah.
bake it in and make the tweaks and.
And that'll help us judge
Together.
how much we need to come discuss and deliberate.
Yeah, and I can't find the email on my phone, but I know I received an email like 2.
That's what I've been sitting here looking for. I cannot find any email that I received that says anything about this residential code. And I've gone back 3 months. So even when we met, so I don't, and the most recent, the one we got on Thursday did not include a link to the residential drafts. It only included the 3 presentations we've had tonight. So I would ask that if you can have Leilani resend that information and make sure that I have received it.
Yeah, I'll look at it, I'll talk with Leilani and see.
I may still have missed it.
Yeah.
I just spent listening to the conversation about the schedule, trying to find this, saying, well, where is it? Because it's news to me.
Yeah, no, I had to go to the website and dig through and find.
Well, it'd be nice if she sent a link in the email. Nice if she had sent a link in the email directly to the document.
Yeah,
Question.
because sometimes I go out there and check and it's not ready. It's not on the city website or something.
So, I mean, I apologize, but.
We'll get that corrected and get
So when you
you.
get to the city's website for upcoming meetings, we'll send you the link, but when you get there, so
Yes,
this is
see-
tonight's meeting, so here's each of these.
See, I go into the planning commission website, portion of it, and it has down in the, I think it's in the right-hand side, it talks about the meeting, I hit that meeting, pops up the attachments for that meeting. And that's,
I'll look at that a little bit closer.
so, as again, it'd be great if provided a link to the document.
Yeah.
As we are given these documents, a direct link, like what is included in this last email, had those 3 documents linked. The 3 presentations were linked.
Yep.
And just do the same
I
thing.
think that's because you sent them, Laura. Wasn't that? Didn't you send them out?
Could have been, yeah, I don't recall.
It's just like lost in there, but we'll send it out. And apologies that you didn't get it. I won't say if, you didn't get it, so apologies you didn't get that.
I still might have, I'm not beating on anybody, I'm just saying, I'd let,
Just side note, I could say, if you don't want to hang on to these, we'll recycle, repurpose them. If you want to keep it, It's all yours.
You had something else that we wanted to go over still before?
The staff report's on there. It's just an update on where we're at. Most of it was kind of, we've talked about already with the audit and the administrative code development. Leilani provided updated statistics on building code.
And what about, you made a comment earlier about Van.
Yeah, thank you. We received a resignation from Van Hunsaker with the planning commission. We didn't get a chance to talk about it at the city council. We've talked to the mayor and the decision was to just leave it empty until we get to January, which is when we would do new appointments anyway. I feel like we lose a solid 4 months there. So it was like, let's go ahead and just open it up to the public. The intent would be to get applications in and for the city council to make that decision at their September council meeting. So if you know of good folks in the community for planning commission, you do have to live within the urban growth boundary. So yeah, if you know folks, send them to the city's website. Pull up the applications and we can take a look at those. We'll just print them off and it's kind of tough if you get multiple, not that it's not good, but if we get multiple folks, it's a little tough for the city council to determine who to pick, because typically you get some good people. So I always tell the caveats like, hey, love for you to apply. If there's more than one person that applies, there's no guarantees, right? But we'd love for you to apply anyway. And if nothing else, it'll put you on the list of interested folks. And when the next one comes up, maybe some of the council says, well, this person's applied like 3 times already or 2 times already. And so maybe that weighs in your favor the more times that you've applied and not got appointed eventually. So it'll be an appointment. Van's term ends the end of next calendar year, the end of December 2027. So this is a nice little 1 year and 4 month opportunity for an
Lots of
appointment.
meaty stuff for them to.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So again, might be a little, hey,
Then never.
apply for the year and 4 months. If you like it, you can apply for another 4. And you probably have a good foot in the door because you've been on for a year. But if you don't like it, then it was only a year and 4 months of your life, right? So anyway, thank you for reminding me of that. And I will say publicly appreciate all of Van's work with the planning commission. He's past mayor, been on the commission for a number of years. I have to go back and look.
It's a while.
Yep.
Long time, a lot of
Wish you well, Van.
knowledge and
Yeah.
appreciate all his work.
Thank you. All right, anything else?
Nothing from staff.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you. It's great help all evening. Yeah, you can have this binder.